Marvel, Spider-Man? No, I'm Superman. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26. Let me go to offer sacrifices to the heaven? Osborn Industries is a renowned corporation in the Marvel Universe, just like Stark Industries. Both companies share close ties with the military. However, Stark Industries focuses more on the manufacture of conventional weapons and munitions, collaborating more closely with the military, making it the military's preferred partner. Osborn Industries, on the other hand, focuses more on the research and development and production of high-tech future weaponry and biogenetic drugs. In terms of overall strength, Stark Industries is undoubtedly more powerful. After all, it's a family-owned company dating back to the 19th century. However, Osborn, known as a villain-making machine, is equally formidable. However, the high-tech equipment and genetic drugs they produce ultimately seem to have failed to secure military cooperation, instead indirectly creating several villains. This isn't surprising, considering Osborn Industries chairman, Norman Osborn, is himself the villain known as the Green Goblin. I wonder if Norman Osborn has become the Green Goblin by now. Peter, arriving at the Osborn Industries building with Gwen that afternoon, couldn't help but wonder, gazing at the towering, luxurious structure. However, there's no news of the Green Goblin causing trouble right now, and considering Gwen has only been Spider-Woman for 2 weeks, she probably hasn't received the drug that turned her into the Green Goblin yet. How is it? It's quite nice here, isn't it? I was also stunned the first time I came here, noticing Peter staring blankly at the Osborn Industries building. Gwen nudged him gently with her elbow and chuckled. Come on, I'll show you inside. Although Gwen was just an intern, she felt like the hostess in front of Peter. Well, actually, this is my second time here. Peter naturally didn't say it out loud, as he didn't want to reveal his embarrassing past in front of a pretty girl. Even though Peter didn't have any special feelings for Gwen at this point, he couldn't help but feel a little awkward upon entering the company. Gwen had first taken him to the front desk to get him a temporary pass to facilitate a subsequent tour of the company. As luck would have it, the receptionist on duty today was the same one who'd been on duty the other day, when Peter had sneaked into the company, triggered the alarm, and was taken to the police station by security. Hi, Gwen, why are you here so early today? The slender, pretty receptionist, dressed in a black business suit, seemed familiar with Gwen and greeted her warmly. Our school starts today, so we don't have classes this afternoon, so I came early. Gwen, one of her few close friends at the company, smiled and greeted him. Oh, by the way, let me introduce you. This is my classmate, Peter Parker. Gwen, not forgetting her purpose, pointed at Peter and introduced him. Parker, wait a minute, aren't you? The receptionist looked at Peter, about to politely greet him, but suddenly realized he looked familiar. The next moment, she remembered that Peter was the intruder who had been taken to the police station that day. After all, she'd been reprimanded by her boss for this incident that day, so the memory was clearly vivid in her mind. Why, have you met before? Gwen asked curiously, observing the receptionist's reaction. Oh, no, I mistaken you for someone else. Your classmate looks like a Hollywood star, Andrew or something. Just as Peter was about to tell her about what had happened, the receptionist slowly spoke up, explaining to Gwen that she had mistaken him for someone else. Peter keenly noticed a subtle look in the way she looked at him and Gwen. It was like the way some people look when they're trying to match a couple. She didn't think I broke into Oscorp last time because of Gwen, did she? Almost instantly, Peter understood that the two of them had caused the receptionist to misunderstand him. You know what? If you were thinner, they'd look quite similar. Even Gwen couldn't help but observe Peter closely, and then she came to a conclusion. Here, Mr. Parker, don't lose it again this time. As the receptionist handed Peter the temporary pass, the look in her eyes seemed to warn him not to get kicked out again. Peter, let's go. I'll take you to meet my internship advisor, Professor Connors. After obtaining a temporary travel permit, Gwen prepared to take Peter to meet his advisor. After all, she had brought Peter to the company not only for a tour, but also with the idea of having him intern there. Oh, by the way, Gwen, I forgot to tell you. Professor Connors is currently receiving a very important guest and won't allow anyone to disturb him. Just as they were about to leave the front desk, the receptionist suddenly remembered something and said to Gwen, Well, it seems we have to change our plans. How about we first visit some of the company's ongoing experimental projects? Gwen looked at Peter with an apologetic look and suggested. I'm fine with that. You decide, Peter said nonchalantly. Okay, let's take the elevator to the 4th floor for a tour of the biological genetics lab. There's one of the coolest creatures here, the spider. For some reason, Gwen wanted to show Peter the spiders that gave her her special powers. Spiders? You mean the kind Spider-Woman uses? Peter said slowly, staring at Gwen. Finally reaching a consensus, the two prepared to take the elevator to the viewing area. As luck would have it, as they walked from the lobby to the elevator, a rather scruffy-looking man, carrying a worn-out satchel and looking completely out of place, hurried out of the elevator. He kept glancing back as he walked, looking a bit furtive. Someone help catch that guy. He stole my things. Just as the strange man was about to pass Peter and the others, the door to another elevator suddenly opened. A one-armed middle-aged man in a white lab coat ran out, pointing at the sloppy man and shouting. Having his theft exposed, the sloppy man abandoned his disguise and quickened his pace, switching from walking to running, ready to leave the company before security arrived. However, as he passed Peter and Gwen, Peter, not particularly nosy, naturally acted as if nothing had happened. However, Gwen, full of justice, didn't hesitate and suddenly stretched out her leg, blocking the man's path. Snap! The middle-aged man suddenly tripped and fell flat on his face, slumping several meters across the floor. His shoulder bag instantly fell to the ground, its contents scattering everywhere. The next moment, seemingly unconcerned about his injuries or the other items in his bag, he simply grabbed the tube of liquid reagent from among the scattered items. He stood up and ran out of the company without looking back. Among the scattered items were several tubes of reagent. One of them had somehow rolled from the floor several meters away to Peter's feet. The crystal-clear green liquid inside seemed to have a special attraction for Peter, compelling him to pick it up. Crack! Peter suddenly raised his foot and stomped on the tube, sending the crystal-clear green liquid cascading all over the floor. You want me to sacrifice to the gods? No way. P.S. Please bookmark and read. Chapter 27 Four-Armed Hulk. What exactly happened? Professor Connors, Gwen, who had stepped forward to help, saw her mentor so anxious for the first time. That guy stole my regeneration potion. This new potion is still an unfinished experiment. If used rashly, it could cause genetic damage and be fatal. Connors, now lying on the ground, was almost undignified, frantically picking up the other spilled reagents while explaining to Gwen without turning back. By the way, call the police. That guy's identity is questionable. I'm afraid it might cause even more chaos. After collecting all the potions and putting them back into his satchel, Professor Connors hugged the bag tightly. Then, suddenly remembering the man's identity, he gave Gwen a worried look. Oh, of course that guy's identity is questionable. Peter had recognized the man the moment he emerged from the elevator. It was none other than Dr. Banner, the Hulk who had escaped the military encirclement that morning. But when did Dr. Banner become involved with Connors? And even stole his lizard man transformation device. And this Dr. Connors doesn't seem so bad after all. Peter, standing silently by, felt something was amiss. Yes, Father, it's near the company building where I'm interning. Please send someone over. Seeing the serious and worried look on her mentor's face, Gwen didn't hesitate and called her father, the sheriff. Phew, I hope it doesn't cause too much trouble. Seeing Gwen had already called the police, Professor Connors finally breathed a sigh of relief and finally noticed Peter standing next to Gwen. Confused, he asked Gwen, by the way, Gwen, who is this? He's my classmate, Peter Parker. I was planning to bring him to meet you, but I didn't expect this to happen. Gwen blushed slightly, explaining with some embarrassment. Hello, Peter Parker. Wait, Parker? Could your father be? The mention of Parker instantly reminded Professor Connors of a colleague he'd worked on a genetic mutation project with years before. Sorry, we'll talk about this later. I need to get back to my lab. Gwen, why don't you show Parker around the company first? But he quickly realized this wasn't the time to discuss these matters. He needed to properly store the potion in his arms. He apologized to the two and quickly headed for the elevator, returning to his lab. I'm sorry, Peter. I didn't expect something like this to happen today. Gwen looked at Peter, a look of apology on her face. It's okay. Oh, my God. What the hell is that? Help. There's a monster. Everyone, run. Monsters are attacking. Just as Peter was saying it was okay, a huge commotion erupted from outside the company. The two turned to see countless people fleeing in panic. "Sorry, Peter, I suddenly remembered that our band asked me to rehearse this afternoon. I'll be leaving now. See you at school tomorrow." Looking at the chaos outside, Gwen instantly came up with an excuse. As she spoke, she hurried out, not giving Peter a chance to speak. "Oh, I finally understand what it's like to be stood up by a superhero." Peter felt a mixture of amusement and annoyance as he watched one sprint out of the company, then against the crowd, rushing towards the source of the riot. But this is alright, back to a few minutes ago. Dr. Banner, after being tripped by Gwen, frantically grabbed a vial of potion and ran out of Osborn Tower. Naturally, Osborn's security hadn't given up on pursuing him. And when Gwen called the police, the nearest police also got the message and rushed over. Banner, after all, was only a scientist, not a good runner. Ultimately, he was cornered by the two groups on a nearby street. Warning. Surrender immediately, or we reserve the right to shoot you immediately. Seeing the white-skinned criminal, the nearby police didn't use the American IAI technique to try to change his ways. Instead, they placed their hands on their waists, warning Banner to surrender immediately. "No, stay away. I'm losing control." After his recent rapid escape, Dr. Banner's strength was almost completely depleted. Now surrounded by armed police, the primordial force within him was about to burst. The skin on his face was already turning green. "What have you done? Stop now, or we'll shoot." As ordinary police officers, they had never seen such a situation before, their heads turning green at the slightest disagreement. Without hesitation, he drew his pistol from his waistband and pointed it at Banner, who was already on the verge of collapse. Roar! Suddenly, as the green color almost completely took over Banner's face, a beast-like roar erupted from his mouth. His body began to expand rapidly, the green skin instantly bursting through his already tattered clothes. Only a pair of large shorts made of an unknown material between his legs could barely cover his sensitive parts. "Even though you've saved me many times, I don't want to hurt anyone else. I'm sorry." While he still had a shred of consciousness, Banner unhesitatingly injected himself with a stolen reagent. No, the next moment, with a roar of resentment, the last shred of Banner's clarity vanished. His once human-like body suddenly swelled to several meters in height, like a man-eating beast. Requesting backup, bang, bang, bang. The police, who had never seen such a horrifying sight, called for help while firing without hesitation at the beast before them. Ouch! The bullets pierced the monster's body, causing it to let out a terrifying howl, as if in immense pain. A gun actually worked. Several police officers couldn't help but glance at each other, then scrutinize their pistols, their expressions filled with surprise. In this situation, their guns shouldn't have been effective at all. "No, it's not a gun, it's the monster itself," one officer suddenly said, looking at the still wailing monster with shock. Beneath the monster's green skin, countless tiny insects seemed to be swarming frantically, its already enormous body now growing even taller. The constant wriggling of the unknown object caused its green skin to bulge, like the surging waves of a restless sea. Suddenly, as the bulge grew higher and higher, its green skin, unable to bear the weight, burst open. Countless sticky green liquids gushed out from the ruptured areas, making the mere sight nauseating. As its skin continued to burst, the monster howled even more miserably, as if in immense pain. "What the hell is going on?" The police stared in horror at the horrific scene, their legs retreating in fear. Suddenly, the bursting sounds and the monster's miserable howls ceased. "Is it dead?" The police looked in disbelief at the monster, its skin not a single piece intact. It stood there silently, its head drooping, as if completely dead. Puff. "Ah, it's still alive," just as a police officer was cautiously preparing to approach to investigate. Several green fingers suddenly stretched out from the top of the monster's drooping head. "Fuck, run!" Seeing the horrific scene before them, all the police officers turned around and fled without hesitation. Hiss. The monster's head was suddenly torn apart from the inside by two hands. Along with the monster's tattered skin, it was torn in half from the middle as if it were a rag. A new monster, like a snake shedding its skin, emerged from the torn skin. Even more shocking was that this new monster actually had 4 thick arms. P.S. Thank you all for your recommendation votes and monthly tickets. If you haven't invested yet, please remember to invest. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28: Crazy Four-Handed Hulk. Dr. Banner, a fellow scientist with a deep understanding of biogenetics, couldn't have failed to understand that Professor Connors's regeneration potion was a complete half-baked product, or worse, a complete failure. It lacked a crucial component, the formula that perfectly merged human and animal genes. Even if a human used it, the outcome would likely be nothing more than the unacceptable transformation into a monstrous creature, neither human nor ghost. The even more serious consequence would be the complete collapse of the human genetic chain due to the inability to fuse the two different genes. Yet, this was precisely the effect Banner desired. He had contemplated self-destruction several times to escape the nightmares that constantly woke him. However, the Hulk's presence prevented him from doing so. Until today, he suddenly realized he could use Professor Connors's failed genetic potion to collapse his own genetic sequence. Unfortunately, he underestimated the Hulk's power. His failed suicide attempt inadvertently created an even more powerful and deranged monster, the Four-Armed Hulk. The two upper hands tore through the Hulk's tattered skin, and a brand new monster emerged. He placed his four hands in front of him and slowly clenched his fists, feeling a force even greater and more terrifying than before. The next moment, the Four-Armed Hulk suddenly roared to the heavens. Roar! The frantic, man-bearing roar instantly resounded throughout the city, as if announcing his rebirth to the world. As the roar ended, the Hulk gently exerted force with his legs, and his entire body suddenly leaped hundreds of meters high. And thanks to his four arms, he possessed the ability to briefly hover and control his direction. As his body reached its peak, he surveyed the crowds on the main street below. A hint of human-like madness and mockery crossed his ferocious, dark green face. The next moment, his body plummeted from the sky, crushing a moving car. The poor car, completely unaware that its scrap date was imminent, was instantly crushed by the terrifying force, creating a massive crater in the hard road. Oh my god, what the hell is that monster? Countless passers-by were momentarily stunned by the sight, forgetting to flee. Get out of the way. Meanwhile, a medium-sized van was speeding up behind them, on the verge of a collision, its horn blaring incessantly. A touch of human disgust suddenly crossed the Hulk's previously frantic expression. The next moment, he suddenly turned his head. That's right, his body didn't move, only his head spun 180 degrees. Ah, what is that? The truck driver, stunned by the bizarre scene before him, immediately released his foot on the brake and slammed his foot on the accelerator. It's better to kill the monster than to scare myself to death, that was the driver's only thought at that moment. And he succeeded. The truck instantly increased its speed and hurtled straight towards the monster ahead. Bang! The immense force of the impact would have sent an ordinary person flying dozens of meters. Yet, the Hulk remained stationary, seemingly motionless. The truck that had struck it was crushed by its massive mass, leaving a massive dent in the vehicle. Almost the entire front section of the vehicle caved in. A creaking sound. The next moment, Hulk's four arms, like his neck, slowly twisted and spun, grabbing the truck in front of him. Then, he tore it in two, ripping it right through the hollow in the middle. Without hesitation, he hurled the two halves like flying discs. Boom! The rapidly spinning halves instantly slammed into a distant building. The terrifying impact sent them crashing into the building like a plane falling from the sky, leaving a massive gaping hole in the structure. Help! My leg! Countless people screamed and wailed. Run! This monster isn't even human. The stunned pedestrians around him suddenly came to their senses and fled in panic. A flicker of mockery crossed Hulk's face as he watched the pedestrians fleeing like ants. Then, with both hands, he casually grabbed a parked car on the street. He tore it in half with force. Then, without hesitation, he flung it at the fleeing pedestrians. Hey, big green guy, didn't your mom teach you not to litter? Suddenly, two silver-white strands of silk appeared from the section of car he had flung out. The next moment, a slender figure in a black and white spider suit appeared. The silk thread spun the car's half around, sending it slinging back at the Hulk. Tiny reptile, with a casual punch, the Hulk shattered the returned half of the car, now able to stutter out a human voice. The next moment, his entire body leaped up, charging towards her at a speed even Gwen hadn't anticipated. Damn! How can it be so fast? Gwen had never imagined such a bulky monster could possess such speed. Even with her spider sense blaring, she had no time to dodge. She only managed to shoot silk threads at the speeding Hulk's face. Damn reptile! Hulk, splattered in the face with silk, grew even more furious. With a clenched fist, he launched a powerful punch at Gwen. Damn! How come this guy's strength is several times greater than that Venom last time? This was the only thought in Gwen's mind as she was blasted away. Poor Gwen, she'd encountered two troublesome villains, each far superior to her own. Boom! Her entire body was embedded deep within the building's wall. The terrifying impact caused the entire structure to tremble. Gwen, struck head-on, felt even worse. The monster had nearly severely injured her with a single blow. However, just as Gwen felt the intense pain radiating from her body, her keen spider sense sounded another frantic warning. Fuck! She watched as the monster suddenly slammed its hands into the road, unleashing a powerful force that completely lifted the concrete pavement for over 10 meters. Then, it sent the pavement, weighing tens, perhaps even hundreds of tons, careening towards her. Gwen's face nearly turned as green as the monster's. What should I do? Gwen frantically racked her brains. She could, of course, dodge and avoid being hit directly. But the 10-story building behind her would likely collapse under the incoming concrete pavement. Who knows how many people would be killed or injured? With her kindness and sense of justice, how could Gwen bear to see such a cruel thing happen? Sorry, Peter, it looks like I'll be breaking my promise again tomorrow. The next moment, Gwen suddenly braced herself, her injured body, and curled her legs against the building wall. Spider silk from her hands shot out to either side. Using the silk's pull and the explosive power of her legs, Gwen prepared to use her own flesh to withstand the oncoming concrete. But then, almost as if teleporting, a familiar figure suddenly appeared before her, a bright red cape fluttering in the wind. P.S. My investment is almost over 100, keep it up, brothers. Thank you all for your monthly votes and recommendations. Chapter 29, Crushing Attitude. Is it him? Gwen couldn't help but smile at the sudden appearance of the figure before her. Look, it's Superman. Great, we're saved. Countless people in the building spotted the figure that had just appeared outside the window. The figure, soaring in the air like a god, instantly cheered those in danger. Be careful. Yet, looking at the figure before her, Gwen couldn't help but feel a surge of worry. After all, while the man before her was called Superman, no one knew if he truly possessed the unrivaled strength of the comic book Superman. And Gwen had just experienced the power of this green monster herself. It was fair to say he was worth a dozen of her current selves. Yet, despite Gwen's worry and the rapidly approaching boulder weighing hundreds of tons, the figure before her showed no sign of panic. He even raised a hand. Thud. A soft sound, like gravel on calm water, created a splash. Gwen seemed to see ripples forming in the space around the figure, like the surface of water. The boulder, weighing hundreds of tons and packing a powerful impact, was easily stopped by the figure in front with a single hand. They didn't even flinch, their stance radiating grace. So strong, at that moment, Gwen finally understood what true strength truly was. You go help the other injured, I'll take care of this guy, an undeniable voice echoed, and Gwen watched as the figure before her, single-handedly lifting a boulder weighing hundreds of tons, sped toward the green monster. This guy, though the other person's unwavering tone made her feel a little uncomfortable, Gwen obeyed the instructions, dragging her barely recovered body to rush to help the injured. Meanwhile, Peter, single-handedly lifting a boulder weighing hundreds of tons, had already arrived in front of the four-armed Hulk. Looking down at the monster, uglier than the Hulk but still incredibly strong, Peter slowly said, "We need to talk, roar, you lowly ant." The Hulk, barely able to speak, roared angrily at Peter in midair. Well, it seems we need some spectacular special effects. Seeing the Hulk refusing to communicate, Peter unhesitatingly raised the boulder in his hand and swung it like a giant mace, smashing it down on the ground. Bang! The Hulk, of course, wouldn't just stand there and be crushed. He pushed off the ground with his legs, instantly leaping up, clenching his fists, and slamming down hard at the boulder overhead. However, the boulder didn't crumble as Hulk had anticipated. Perhaps it was because the jump was too low, or perhaps the hundreds of tons of force weren't fully unleashed. In any case, like a fly being swatted, the Hulk was swatted back to the ground. Roar! Hulk, frustrated for the first time, instantly became furious, roaring angrily at Peter in midair. Quiet, without hesitation, Peter swung the boulder in his hand down again, slamming the roaring Hulk down. Bang! Even though Hulk reacted quickly, raising all four arms to resist, He was still crushed by the immense boulder. While his body remained upright, his legs were already deeply buried in the ground. "I'll let you scream again. I'll let you scream again." Peter transformed the boulder into a massive hammer, using the Hulk on the ground as a stake, hammering him down again and again. The sheer violence was enough to send shivers down one's spine. Boom. Crash. After a dozen consecutive blows, Peter's boulder finally gave way to the weight, and with a final blow, it shattered to the ground. Meanwhile, Hulk had vanished from the ground, seemingly slammed deep beneath the surface. Roar. Suddenly, the Hulk burst forth from the ground behind Peter. Peter charged high into the air, fists waving. HMPH, I saw you coming." Faced with this sudden situation, Peter remained unfazed. As he gracefully spun through the air, a dangerous red light suddenly shone from his eyes. Hulk was swift. In less than a tenth of a second, he was already in front of Peter, his fist, a veritable sandbag, about to strike Peter's face. With a swish, a terrifying beam of heat suddenly erupted from Peter's eyes. The horrifying heat instantly struck Hulk's chest, its immense force sending the charging Hulk flying back from his trajectory. Bang! Hulk's body slammed hard onto the road, but the terrifying heat continued unabated. The scorching heat, carrying an immense force, propelled Hulk's body rapidly along the ground, leaving a gully several meters deep and hundreds of meters long. Finally, Peter slowly ceased his heat. The terrifying heat and immense impact still left a massive, unmistakable wound on Hulk's chest. His green skin, like steel, burned red and black from the intense heat. Ouch! The intense pain made Hulk scream to the heavens. However, Hulk's remarkable healing abilities were not to be underestimated. His injuries healed within seconds, returning him to his original form. The next moment, Hulk rose from the ground and leaped into the air once again. However, this time, he didn't charge at Peter, but instead charged in the opposite direction. "Escape," Peter snorted. In his grasp, almost no one could escape. His body suddenly accelerated, leaving a powerful sonic boom in the air. In an instant, he appeared behind the newly leaped Hulk. His steel-like fist slammed into Hulk's body. Bang! The immense force sent the Hulk's massive frame resounding with a sonic boom. Hulk's body was blasted away like a cannonball. The terrifying impact sent the Hulk careening through a massive building, leaving a massive black hole in its path. It flew for several kilometers before finally landing in the sea next to a cross-sea bridge, creating a powerful splash. Before a second had passed, a figure suddenly appeared above the bridge, swooping to a stop, completely crushing Newton's coffin to the ground. The next moment, the calm sea surface suddenly exploded. The Hulk suddenly leaped out. The terrifying impact pierced through the bridge from beneath, continuing its charge towards Peter, high in the sky. Whoosh! Facing the Hulk's onslaught, Peter exhaled a gentle, freezing breath. A silvery white icy mist instantly enveloped the Hulk's body. Crunch! Before the Hulk's stunned eyes, he was instantly frozen into a crystal-clear ice sculpture. The next moment, Peter slapped the restricted Hulk's ability to move hard, just like playing volleyball, and knocked him back onto the bridge. Crack! The frozen Hulk fell on the cross-sea bridge, and the ice on his body shattered instantly. After shaking his head suddenly to regain consciousness, Hulk suddenly stretched his four hands into the hole he had just penetrated. The next moment, the entire cross-sea bridge began to shake. Roar! With a roar full of anger, Hulk seemed to have exploded his own small universe in an instant, and actually lifted up a section of the cross-sea bridge weighing thousands of tons. Then he slapped Peter in the air. P.S. Today is the most important day for the next recommendation. Please be sure to read the latest chapter. Thank you. Chapter 30 Humanity is looking up. On the bridge, countless vehicles were forced to stop by the Hulk's appearance. Some, unable to brake in time, caused a series of rear-end collisions. What happened up ahead? Was there an accident? Countless pedestrians in the jammed lanes got out of their cars and looked ahead. Run! There's a monster on the bridge, but the next moment, screams of surprise and the panicked flight of pedestrians revealed what was happening. Oh my god! What the hell is that? Everyone watched as an entire section of the bridge was slowly lifted, their eyes filled with shock. I can't believe that monster actually lifted an entire bridge. Aerial above, media outlets, having learned of the monster's appearance in New York City, had already dispatched reporters. They were now in helicopters, capturing the unfolding events on the bridge with cameras. Incredible. How powerful is that monster? The viewers watching on television were stunned by the monster's might. No matter how powerful that monster is, it can never defeat Superman. Among them were Peter's staunch supporters. Hulk, carrying a bridge weighing over 1,000 tons, whizzed through the air, stirring up a powerful gust of wind. Amidst the howling wind, the massive bridge slammed down upon Peter, who was in midair. The angrier this guy gets, the stronger he seems to be. At this moment, as the Hulk suddenly unleashed such terrifying power, Peter's relaxed expression faded, and a serious expression settled on his face. In his normal form, with his current strength, he could easily crush the Hulk. But if the Hulk's power increased with rage, with no upper limit, Peter would have to be wary. After all, Peter remembered that the Hulk in the comics could destroy the Earth. As Superman, it's my duty to protect my Earth. Instantly, Peter swung his massive bridge towards the Hulk. A crimson glow flashed from his eyes. Sizzling heat rays, brimming with heat and powerful impact, blazed ahead, dancing like an incredibly sharp lightsaber. Even the sturdy bridge seemed like tofu, easily cut. Peter swiftly sliced through the entire bridge. With his godlike form, he rushed towards the Hulk below without hesitation. Bang, bang, bang. Countless shattered boulders slammed into the bridge, causing it to vibrate. In mere seconds, the Hulk had lifted a 1,000-ton bridge, only to have it shattered to a single fragment. Meanwhile, Peter had finally reached the Hulk. His eyes, ablaze with heat, shot forth without hesitation at the Hulk's face. He swung his right fist, fiercely slamming into the Hulk's torso. Zzz! Facing Peter's attack, the Hulk seemed to have learned his lesson. He crossed his upper arms in front of him, blocking Peter's incoming heat. Then, with his other two hands, he blocked Peter's incoming fists. Having successfully blocked them, he grabbed Peter's arms and yanked them apart, seemingly attempting a strength contest or even tearing Peter's arms completely from his body. Oh no! Superman's been captured by that monster. Can our Superman resolve this crisis and successfully defeat the monster? Let's cheer him on. High in the sky, reporters in a helicopter were determined to fulfill their duties. But their expressions were also filled with worry for the captured Superman. Superman, keep going. You're the strongest, keep going. Good will triumph over evil. Sometimes, the line between good and evil is not so clear. Compared to the ugly Hulk, even though Superman had previously been arrogant and selfish, barely doing anything to help others, at this moment, he undoubtedly represented true justice. Do you think I don't know that you're trying to completely suppress me with your multiplied strength, and the reason I'm giving up my flight advantage to engage you in close combat, that's because my power is far greater than yours. Thinking of the system notification tone that had just sounded, a smile gradually appeared on Peter's face. Congratulations, host. Your superpower has been successfully awakened. AWW. Hulk, who had previously held the upper hand in strength, firmly grasped Peter's body with his forearms. Suddenly, he sensed an unparalleled and terrifying power erupting from the tiny human before him. Almost instantly, he felt an almost irresistible surge of force from his grasping arms. Just as he left the balcony in disappointment, ready to check other news channels for more news about Superman, he suddenly noticed a new message in his astronomy enthusiast group. Everyone, look at the moon. General Ross, they've left the city limits. Can we launch a nuclear bomb to completely eliminate that terrifying monster? And that god, at that moment, in a classified video conference reserved for military generals and dignitaries, a politician in a fine suit slowly spoke, proposing to General Ross. In reality, both the powerful, terrifying monster and the godlike Superman hung like the sword of Damocles over the heads of all official politicians, ready to strike down their heads at any moment. Now, with such a golden opportunity to eliminate both, how could they not be tempted? Mr. Vice President, your proposal is childish. That Superman's speed far exceeds any known aircraft. Even if we launch a nuclear bomb, we won't be able to catch up to the target. After all, our Superman wouldn't, as in the comics, willingly enter a nuclear bomb from humanity just to destroy a monster. Besides, our nuclear bombs aren't guaranteed to harm him. Furthermore, according to our military satellites, they're about to land on the moon. As a soldier, General Ross understood Superman's power better than anyone else. Especially a Superman without mercy, acting without scruples. He's practically a true god on Earth. Mr. Vice President, I hope you'll submit your resignation to Congress tomorrow. You've treated our heroes this way. You don't deserve this position. A politician, seemingly of higher rank, finally spoke up, instantly condemning the vice president who had proposed the proposal. He then turned his attention away from the grim-faced vice president and continued slowly, addressing General Ross. General Ross, can you mobilize the satellite to show the current picture of the moon? I want to witness with my own eyes how the heroes of mankind defeat the evil monsters. As he spoke, an excited expression appeared on his face, as if he was happy for the final victory of justice. Chapter 31 Above the Moon. The vast universe now welcomed a mortal god. Crossing the universe in a mortal body, in the human worldview, this was absolutely impossible. The Hulk in the state has managed to barely adapt to the harsh environment of space. Peter looked at the Hulk in his arms. After arriving in space, he had only become extremely weak, but still not completely unconscious. Even at the side of his recently severed arm, tiny traces of flesh were wriggling, seemingly repairing itself. He truly is the most resilient being. Seeing that the Hulk hadn't completely calmed down despite the harsh conditions of space, Peter slowly glanced towards the moon, a full 380,000 kilometers from Earth. The next moment, he hurled the Hulk directly towards the moon. His entire body accelerated, almost instantly catching up to the Hulk he had flung away. He then delivered a powerful punch to the Hulk's body. Instantly, the Hulk, already exceeding the speed of sound with Peter's casual toss, sped up dozens of times. Peter accelerated again, awakening his superpowers and delivering a punch tens of thousands of times more powerful than before, slamming into Hulk's body once again. Just like that, Peter delivered punch after punch, launching himself from outer space directly to the moon. The moon, which took human probes days to reach, took Peter just under 20 minutes, thanks to his current acceleration, to reach the lunar surface. By this point, Hulk's speed had reached an unparalleled level. Peter finally gave up pursuit, stopping in space 100 kilometers above the lunar surface, his gaze calmly observing Hulk as he hurtled towards the moon. Meanwhile, Earth had finally managed to calibrate satellite images of the lunar surface. However, even with a combined power of several of the military's most advanced satellites, the image was still unclear. All that could be seen was a tiny black dot, as tiny as a mosquito, hovering above the silvery white moon, its movements unclear. However, after sophisticated image processing, everyone present could clearly see that the tiny black dot hovering above the moon was none other than their hero, Superman. What are our heroes doing now? Everyone was perplexed as they watched the satellite feed. But the scene that unfolded the next moment instantly and shockingly resolved their doubts. A powerful explosion erupted from the previously tranquil lunar surface, stirring up lunar dust into a massive mushroom cloud tens of kilometers high. The terrifying shockwave spread outward at a visible speed, even sweeping across the moon in a terrifying dust storm. In mere seconds, the shockwave had engulfed the entire lunar surface visible to satellites and was continuing toward the far side. Even from Earth, the shockwave's spread could be barely seen with the naked eye. What on earth just happened? The vice president, who had just been dismissed and still felt resentful, was practically paralyzed by the horrific scene. His eyes widened, his face filled with disbelief at the horrific scene unfolding on the moon. Nearly 10 minutes passed before the stirred-up dust finally subsided. At that moment, nearly everyone gazing at the awe-inspiring scene on the lunar surface couldn't help but express shock. For, a massive crater, nearly 1,000 kilometers in diameter, had suddenly appeared on the lunar surface. How is this possible? Countless people were in disbelief at the sight before them. The vice president, who had just proposed a nuclear attack on Superman, was now practically mad, muttering, "Impossible, absolutely impossible." The meeting room remained silent for nearly 3 minutes. Have you estimated the power of that explosion? Even in his high position, the government official's gaze remained distorted. Hiss. At that moment, General Ross had just received a simple prediction document regarding the explosion. Upon reading it, even as a general, he couldn't help but gasp. Mr. President, based on a simple estimate by our personnel, the crater created by the explosion on the lunar surface just now is approximately 800 to 900 kilometers in diameter, equivalent to about a quarter of the moon's diameter. Of course, that's because the moon's environment is unique, with loose oil on the surface, which easily creates relatively large craters. On Earth, a crater of the same magnitude would likely be 10 times smaller. That's not so bad. Hearing this explanation, the president finally breathed a sigh of relief. However, General Ross's next words made his heart rise again. A simple calculation shows that the explosion's force is equivalent to hundreds of millions of tons of TNT, several times more powerful than the Big Ivan dropped by Russia last century. If such an attack landed in the heart of New York City, The entire city would be completely wiped off the face of the earth. Taking a deep breath, General Ross finally recovered from the shock of reading this information. At that moment, he truly understood what it meant to be a god on Earth. The entire New York City will cease to exist, he muttered the prediction quietly, his expression unable to maintain composure. Suddenly, his expression grew extremely serious, and he stood up. From now on, no organization or intelligence agency may arbitrarily seek any information about Superman. Also, organize post-disaster relief efforts as quickly as possible to minimize the damage caused to New York City by that monster and complete post-disaster reconstruction as quickly as possible. Well, in that case, let's establish a new department dedicated to disaster relief. It'll be called Damage Control, or DC for short. Finally, starting with this meeting, the military and government will jointly deploy personnel to monitor all media outlets and newspapers nationwide. I don't want any media outlet or newspaper to discredit our hero of all humanity tomorrow. Meanwhile, above the moon, Peter calmly observed the horrific scene he had created. After everything gradually subsided, he instantly accelerated, hurtling towards the center of a deep crater on the lunar surface. Arriving at the center, he gazed upon the Hulk, whose body had been ravaged by the horrific impact, leaving not a single piece of skin unharmed. He had fallen completely unconscious. A smile finally broke out on Peter's face. At the same time, a system notification chimed in his mind. Congratulations, host. You've successfully completed the mission subduing the Mad Hulk. The reward Kryptonian technology, Doomsday Manufacturing has been successfully distributed. Listening to the notification in his mind announcing the successful distribution of the reward after the mission was completed, and looking at the severely injured Hulk in the deep pit, Peter's lips curled up into a satisfied smile. Chapter 32 Nanoparticle Experiment Success. Fantasy reflects reality, and humanity is honored to welcome its greatest hero, Superman. The next day, across New York City, and indeed the entire world, a single message was being proclaimed. From the giant screens dotting the city streets to the headlines displayed at newsstands in the streets and alleys, the towering figure was everywhere. Superman's name resounded throughout the world overnight, lauded by every media outlet and newspaper. He was crowned humanity's greatest hero. Huh? It seems they're trying to use morality to blackmail me. On the way to school, Peter casually glanced at the newspaper in his hand and instantly understood their purpose. Alice, I have no morals. Or rather, I have a flexible moral compass. He tore the newspaper into pieces and tossed them into a street trash can, ignoring the countless passers-by who were discussing him and the shifting moon in the sky, and slowly walked towards school. Did you watch yesterday's live broadcast? Superman was so cool. However, Peter wasn't going to have a peaceful day today. As soon as he entered the classroom, he heard several classmates gathered together, excitedly discussing the events of the previous night. That's right, Superman is incredibly strong. That ugly monster is no match. If I had Superman's strength, I'd definitely, hey, a black kid gestured repeatedly, as if it were him who had fought the Hulk last night. HMPH, I think Superman is too far away from us. Maybe, like in the comics, he's an alien from another planet, and who knows what his purpose is in coming to Earth? Lightning, his arm in a cast and bandages, watched Peter enter the classroom and shrank back hurriedly, seeming a little afraid. However, seeing that Peter simply returned to the seat he'd sat in yesterday and didn't seem to be bothering him, he regained his courage and continued discussing last night's events with his minions. Fuck, Lightning, are you trying to kill yourself? Don't you know Superman has super hearing? Aren't you afraid Superman will come after you if you say that? One of the minions, hearing Lightning's daring slander of Superman, immediately covered his mouth with his hand. Anyway, I still prefer Spider-Woman. Only she'll help ordinary people like us. Lightning used his uninjured left hand to remove the hand covering his mouth, but ultimately didn't dare continue the slander. Instead, he continued with a hint of dissatisfaction. Spider-Woman? Forget it. Clearly, they had lost interest in discussing Spider-Woman. Suddenly, a classmate looked around and whispered cautiously, "Have you heard about the changes on the moon's surface? I have a friend from another class who's in an astronomy club. According to him, that huge crater that suddenly appeared on the moon wasn't caused by a meteorite impact, but by ding-ling-ling." As the bell rang, the classroom gradually quieted down, and a teacher entered. Today, our first ideological education class will not be about the cliched Captain America spirit, but about the heroic spirit of Superman, who bravely defeats monsters for humanity. As usual, The school had a class on ideological education during the first few days of the new semester. Peter hadn't expected that the class, which had previously focused on Captain America, would now focus on himself. Well, it's fun to believe in myself, Peter, resting his eyes, finally made it home after school. He waited until late at night. When Uncle Ben and Aunt May had retired, he leaped out the window, his entire body accelerating through the air, heading towards the Antarctic Research Base. Soon, Peter arrived at the South Pole. With a single hand, he flung open the heavy iron gate above the base and flew inside. He casually placed the food, water, daily necessities, and essential lab equipment he had brought with him into the storage room. He headed towards the lab. Great! We finally did it! Upon arriving at the nanotechnology lab, Peter heard excited exclamations. Walking quickly into the lab, Peter's gaze instantly caught sight of a dark, viscous substance, resembling a pool of liquid, swirling within a transparent glass container. Nearly every researcher from the entire base was present, watching the nanometal particles in the glass container constantly wriggling, twisting, transforming, and combining in response to the tablet controller in Reed's hand. Their faces lit up with excitement. They all knew that this signified that their research was on track. It also meant they were one step closer to leaving this damned place. Haha, our Mr. Superman has arrived just in time. It was Tony, sitting on the sofa, who first spotted Peter entering the lab. Mr. Superman, could you bring us some better wine next time? Something like the kind I have in my villa's wine cabinet? I can't get used to your cheap stuff. Sitting on the sofa, a glass of wine in hand, Tony made his request to Peter with some anticipation. In reality, aside from the loss of their freedom, their life here was little different from a vacation. After a period of renovation, the environment was much better than it had been when they first started. Tony also knew Peter's personality well. As long as the research could proceed normally, Peter would generally meet any of their demands, as long as they weren't too unreasonable. Peter glanced casually at Tony on the sofa, then without hesitation stepped forward and slowly asked, I heard you guys seem to have succeeded. Yes, based on Dr. Zayo's concept for the regenerative Cradle and Princess Shuri's research on nanomaterials, we've successfully produced nanoparticles that can be manipulated. However, this is only a preliminary success. Reed was no longer as intimidated by Peter this time. When he spoke of his research, a hint of excitement shone in his eyes. For scientists like them, nothing was more thrilling than a successful experiment. Mr. Superman, please look, Reed said, pointing to the nanoparticles in the glass container. He then manipulated the controller again. The next moment, as Peter watched in amazement, the nanoparticles in the container, seemingly a ball of liquid, suddenly began to wriggle and twist rapidly. Under everyone's gaze, they slowly solidified into a pitch-black dagger. The blades gleamed with a sharp, cold light, seemingly even sharper than the dagger itself. However, under his watchful eyes, the dagger's form lasted only less than 3 seconds before shattering with a bang, returning to its previous, liquid-like form. Is it because they don't contain enough energy to sustain this form? Although his super brain hadn't fully awakened yet, Peter instantly saw the true problem. Yes, it's the energy source. Reed was surprised that Peter had discerned the key to the problem. Unlike ordinary biological nanorobots, the nanosuit you need requires a more powerful energy source to maintain the structure between the nanoparticles. Otherwise, the nanoparticles will collapse at the slightest touch, just like what just happened, unless we can find a special material that inherently contains a large amount of energy to create the nanoparticles, but such a material is almost non-existent on Earth. Of course, according to our theory, a small portable energy storage device that can continuously provide them with energy could solve our current problem. However, our energy team doesn't seem to have made much progress so far. As he spoke, Reed glanced at Tony, who was comfortably sipping cheap red wine on the sofa. He was the head of the energy team. Chapter 33 The power of the sun is in my hands. I'm sorry, Mr. Superman. To solve the energy problem, we've tried various energy storage batteries and even considered using future battery technology, which is still imperfect today. Unfortunately, none of these batteries can power the suit. Perhaps only nuclear batteries can sustain the enormous energy demands of the nanosuit. Unfortunately, we humans haven't yet mastered the technology to miniaturize nuclear batteries. That's the key to humanity's future and the dream of every energy scientist. Facing Peter's gaze, Dr. Selvig, also a member of the energy research team, explained cautiously, fearing that Superman might be angry at their slow progress. However, Peter remained calm in the face of Dr. Selvig's explanation, seemingly unmoved, and said nothing. Instead, he turned his gaze to Tony, who was sipping red wine on the sofa, and asked, "Mr. Stark, don't you have any proposals?" Hearing Peter's question, Tony finally put down his glass, stood up from the sofa, and slowly walked towards Peter. "Okay, Mr. Superman, I understand you're anxious, but scientific development requires gradual progress, and energy has always been a crucial science limiting the speed of human progress. Unless a genius like Newton, Einstein, or Leonardo da Vinci emerges who can lead humanity's technological advancement, humanity must follow the laws of development. If the key to the future were so easy to find, it wouldn't be called the key to the future." Tony, a head shorter than Peter, could only look up slightly to meet his gaze. "So, you, who claim to be humanity's most brilliant scientist, don't have a better plan?" Peter remained calm as he met Tony's gaze. "Yes, I actually have a good one." Suddenly, a smile broke across Tony's face. He glanced at Peter before continuing. "They say you absorb the sun's energy and integrate it into your body, which is how you gain such powerful abilities. So, you're actually a source of energy more powerful than any other energy source." Tony didn't continue there. But everyone present, including Peter, knew that his proposed solution was simply to have Peter himself serve as a power bank for his suit. "Tony, you?" The moment Tony finished speaking, everyone present couldn't help but sweat for him, their expressions filled with intense anxiety. This plan had been proposed before, but it was unanimously rejected. The reason was simple. "If I can do it myself, what do I need you for?" Seeing Peter's eyes begin to turn red, Reed hurried between them. He cautiously pleaded with Peter, "Mr. Superman, please give us a little more time. We're sure we can find a solution to the energy problem." "Okay, I'll give you a little more time." The red glow in his eyes faded, and Peter, leaving these words, turned and left. "I almost forgot to tell you that the food I brought this time will last you 3 days, but I'm a bit busy next week, so I don't think I'll have time to bring you supplies. I hope you'll eat sparingly and make it through this week." As Peter left the lab, he suddenly spoke without looking back. "Only a week? Isn't that too short?" Everyone present was intelligent, so they naturally recognized Peter's threat. 1 week was the deadline for resolving their energy problem. Suddenly, everyone's expression darkened. "By the way, one more thing. We came in such a hurry today that we didn't bring any fuel for power generation. So if you're frugal, we should be able to keep the base running for about 3 or 4 days. It's a shame I'm not as smart as you, or I could calculate the time more accurately. But you're smart, and I'm sure you can find a solution, right?" Peter suddenly turned around and looked at the others, his tone filled with regret. He then turned and prepared to leave. 3 days? How can that be possible? At this, the already grim expressions of the people present suddenly turned even more bitter. The energy problem has plagued human civilization for decades. How could they possibly solve it with only 3 days? Watching Peter disappear down the corridor, he looked around at his cellmates, who, though not quite friends, he had become familiar with after working with them for the past few days. Tony, whose face was initially filled with hesitation, finally made his decision. Just as Peter was about to disappear at the end of the corridor, Tony suddenly spoke. "Okay, you win. I've actually already solved the energy problem." Inside the energy laboratory at the Antarctic Research Base, a figure busied itself with work. The others, having been forced out, were peering through the glass windows in the laboratory corridor. "Mr. Superman, we really don't know when Mr. Stark solved the energy problem. He never told us." Outside, Selvig was still explaining things to Peter. In truth, they truly didn't know when or how Tony had solved the energy problem. "I understand. Watch carefully." Peter's eyes never left the figure in the laboratory, watching him skillfully arrange and assemble the various materials and equipment. Tony Stark, the Marvel Universe's undisputed genius, the man Thanos recognized as cursed by knowledge, once, in a crude cave, he created a new clean energy source that could propel humanity to soar, a miniaturized arc reactor. Recalling Tony's original trajectory, Peter had no doubt that if he could succeed in a simple cave, he wouldn't fail in this relatively well-equipped laboratory. What is that? A miniaturized arc reactor? He actually, as expected, as Tony in the lab assembled all the materials into a palm-sized circular reactor, expressions of astonishment crossed the faces of those present, both those knowledgeable in energy and those not. Even Reed Richards, who considered himself humanity's most brilliant scientist, was filled with shock. In this moment, Tony was undoubtedly like a god, illuminating the world with light. As Tony placed palladium metal into the already constructed arc reactor and connected it to the nearby power supply, preparing to ignite it, everyone present held their breath, anticipating the arrival of a moment destined for the annals of history. As Tony personally activated the power source, electricity instantly flowed to the dimmed arc reactor. Buzz, hum. The sound of the current flowing through it continued to accelerate, and the arc reactor began to flash rapidly, from slow to fast. Finally, the sound of the current completely disappeared, and on the table, a silver-white arc reactor, shining like the sun, appeared before everyone's eyes. I admit, in fact, I am the kind of genius who can lead human civilization to take off. It was not until Tony walked out of the laboratory with a successful arc reactor and handed it to Peter that everyone finally came to their senses, but their eyes never left the arc reactor in Peter's hands. The Power of the Sun, in the Palm of My Hand, Chapter Title. Chapter 34, Follow-up to the Hulk Incident. A brilliant idea, an incredible masterpiece, a perfect work of art. At that moment, as everyone gazed at the arc reactor, gleaming like the sun in Peter's palm, all the words of praise they could muster were insufficient to describe what they saw. It's a shame it's not a real sun after all. Yet, feeling the endless flow of energy contained within the arc reactor, Peter couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Mr. Stark, have you tested its efficacy? After a long moment, someone finally reacted, looking at Tony with admiring eyes and asking. If my predictions are correct, and of course, I usually don't, it should be able to release around 5 billion joules of energy per second. My goodness, 5 billion joules per second. That's more than enough to power a nanosuit. At that moment, everyone looked at Tony with admiration. Ahem, Mr. Superman, since I solved the energy problem, could you bring me a few bottles of fine wine next time? Meanwhile, Tony was all smiles, trying to claim credit for Peter's efforts. I'll think about it, Mr. Superman. Now that the energy problem has been solved, I estimate we can create the nanosuit you desire within a month. The nanosuit's creation presented numerous challenges, including how to manipulate nanoparticles, how to make them form more stable molecular structures, how to integrate fixed molecular structure algorithms into the nanoparticles, and how to use consciousness to manipulate the nanoparticles into their desired fixed structures. However, compared to the energy issue, these difficulties pale into insignificance. Especially since they currently possessed several of Earth's brightest minds. Their combined team surpassed almost all other scientific research teams on Earth. Reed's estimate of a month to create the nanosuit was a conservative one. Okay, just 1 month. If you can create the nanosuit, I'll honor our agreement and return you safely, Peter promised them. However, some might not want to return by then. Although Superman had resolved the monster attack on New York, the city had also suffered considerable damage, and the aftermath had only just begun. The Osborn Industries building was now sealed off by New York police and intelligence agents. Of course, they weren't seeking a complete shutdown of Osborn Industries. Some believed yesterday's events were caused by a specific genetic drug Osborn was researching. They were here simply to take away any remaining regeneration potions and related research materials. In Professor Connors's laboratory, countless intelligence agents were packing up and taking away all the experimental materials. Professor Connors, the master of all this, could only watch helplessly, his face filled with reluctance and helplessness. I'm sorry, Professor Connors, these are orders from above, Sergeant George said to Connors with sympathy and apology as he entered the laboratory. It's okay, Sergeant George. If I hadn't coveted that person's perfect genes and wanted to perfect the regeneration potion, this wouldn't have happened. All the potions I have developed are here. I just hope you'll take good care of them. Handing a simple satchel to Sergeant George, Connors paused for a moment before continuing. Or, take my advice. If possible, I urge you to completely destroy them along with the research materials. I fear some, like me, will succumb to the allure of immortality. A trace of regret crossed Professor Connors's face. Blinded by the immense benefits and temptations, he hadn't been alert to Banner's true purpose in seeking him out. It seems I'll never be able to regenerate this hand. Glancing at the empty cuff of his right hand, Professor Connors felt surprisingly relieved. I'm sorry, Professor. You may lose your freedom for a while, but this is a necessary safeguard. Please understand, of course, Professor Connors himself was under very strict restrictions. I understand. I have nothing to lose now anyway. Professor Connors had dedicated nearly his entire life to the regeneration potion, and now nothing mattered to him. Two officers then approached Professor Connors, ready to escort him away. "By the way, Chief George, please apologize to your daughter. Gwen is the most outstanding student I've ever met. It's just a shame that I can't continue to be her internship mentor." As Professor Connors was about to leave the lab, he suddenly turned to George and said, "However, I know a professor named Otto Octavius. If Gwen is interested, she can visit him and say I recommended her." Without hesitation, Professor Connors followed the two officers out of the lab, leaving behind the place where he had dedicated his life. "Professor Otto," George muttered a somewhat unfamiliar name as he reached into his bag, pulled out a tube of regeneration potion emitting a rich green glow, and examined it carefully. Meanwhile, on the African continent, in Wakanda, the women of the Wakanda Royal Guard surrounded a figure dressed in black combat gear and wearing a black mask resembling a cheetah. Wielding vibranium spears, the Royal Guard exuded an aura even more ferocious than that of the man. "Charge!" At the command of Captain Okoye, the others, without hesitation, grasped their spears and charged at the panther-like figure. The next moment, the surrounded figure displayed the swiftness of a true cheetah, weaving through the guards' encirclement and nimbly dodging their attacks. He even used his razor-sharp claws to strike down several guardsmen. However, the Wakanda guards were no pushovers. After sacrificing several of their own, they finally formed a tight blockade. The guard spears crisscrossed and crisscrossed, ultimately locking the figure in place in a nearly impenetrable formation. Suddenly, the figure in the Black Panther suit roared, and a halo of light rapidly swirled across the black suit. The next moment, a powerful wave of energy erupted from the suit at a visible speed. The powerful impact instantly broke through the guards' blockade, sending their vibranium spears flying. Instantly, Black Panther caught a falling spear and, in the blink of an eye, was standing before the prone Okoye, spear pointed at her throat. But the next moment, he sheathed his spear and extended his right hand toward Okoye. "My apologies, Captain Okoye, Prince T'Challa, your strength has improved again." Using T'Challa's extended hand, Okoye stood up, genuinely happy for T'Challa. "Well done, my son. You make me incredibly proud." Suddenly, accompanied by applause, the old King T'Chaka appeared at their side and praised T'Challa. "Now that you have fully mastered the Black Panther's power, it seems time to entrust this mission to you." The old king gave his son a deep look before slowly speaking. He raised his hand and projected a video from the device on his wrist. "Is this the moon that Superman attacked? Are you asking me to gather information about him? No. Your destination is the far side of the moon, where no human has ever set foot." The old king slowly rotated the image of the moon, presenting a never-before-seen image to T'Challa. "P.S. I'm begging for more monthly votes and recommendation tickets. Thank you. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 New Discoveries in the Arctic. Shock. The Osborn Industries genetic laboratory has been shut down, and its director, Professor Kurt Connors, is under close police surveillance. It's rumored that the monster that suddenly appeared the next morning, Obadiah, having just arrived at his office, saw the front-page headline. "Osborn Industries? Humph, you dared to steal my military business? Now you're getting your comeuppance." The moment he saw the news, Obadiah felt a surge of joy. Although Tony Stark's disappearance had been concealed from the public, it was fully known to the nation's top officials. As a result, Stark Industries, having lost its talented weapons developer, saw its influence with a military plummet. However, Osborn Industries, seemingly armed with inside information, took advantage of Tony Stark's disappearance to establish close ties with the military. Rumors suggest they were about to secure a large, long-term contract. Fortunately, we didn't gain nothing. Although it cost a bit, we finally secured the opportunity to collaborate with the government on post-disaster relief and reconstruction projects. Tony's disappearance had weakened Stark Industries' influence within the upper echelons. But for Obadiah, this was a golden opportunity to completely control the company. Furthermore, while participating in the post-disaster relief and reconstruction project might seem like a losing proposition, it actually held unexpected rewards. Please contact all key company personnel and shareholders. I have an important meeting in half an hour. After instructing his secretary and hanging up the phone, Obadiah couldn't help but smile with excitement as he thought about the extraordinary gains he had made from this partnership. Half an hour passed quickly, and the vast conference room was already filled with people. They wore suits and expensive ties, looking like successful individuals. Most of them were Stark Industries executives and shareholders. Mr. Stan, why did you suddenly call us here? What important announcement do you have? Has something happened at the company? As everyone arrived, a shareholder finally asked, concerned, as Stan sat in his executive chair at the long conference table, his back to them, and no intention of turning around. As shareholders, they had naturally heard some negative rumors about Stark Industries. It seems this gentleman isn't optimistic about our company's prospects. In that case, I'll take over your shares. Don't worry, I'll give you the highest market price, Obadiah spoke in a voice filled with pressure, without even turning around. Mr. Stan, that's not what I meant. This shareholder naturally wouldn't give up his shares easily. I'm sorry, but you're no longer a shareholder, so you can't attend this meeting. As soon as Obadiah finished speaking, two burly men in black suits and sunglasses, who had been prepared outside, walked directly into the meeting room. Ignoring the shareholders' protests, they forcibly dragged him out. Now, I declare the Stark Industries Biogene Laboratory to be established effective today. Who agrees? Who disagrees? Slowly turning, Obadiah announced his decision in a firm tone. Mr. Stan, why are you suddenly setting this up? As the CEO's secretary, Pepper Potts naturally had the right to participate in this high-level meeting, but before she could even voice her question, Obadiah interrupted her. Congratulations, Ms. Pepper. On behalf of Tony, I'm approving you of 6 months paid leave. You'll be temporarily exempt from company matters, so, do the rest of you have any questions? Seeing the situation, the others naturally didn't dare raise any objections. After all, it was just a simple biological genetics laboratory. HMPH, you're smart, Obadiah smiled amiably, but inwardly snorted. Meanwhile, at SHIELD headquarters, in Director Nick Fury's office, he said, so, it's been nearly 2 weeks since Tony Stark disappeared, and you're telling me we still haven't found anything? All our SHIELD agents useless. Nick Fury's already dark expression darkened even more. Almost 2 weeks had passed, and they still hadn't found any information about the missing scientists, as if they had vanished from the face of the earth. I'm sorry, Director. We've searched hidden areas around the world, even sending agents to the backward agricultural nation of Wakanda in Africa. Unfortunately, nothing has been found so far. However, we've begun searching the polar regions. If we can't find any information about those scientists there, then I'm afraid, Agent Hill's expression was grim. To find the missing scientists, that deployed tens of thousands of low-level agents from around the world to conduct a thorough search. But they'd made no progress. During the search, they even received the devastating news that other laboratories had been emptied. Director, although we haven't found any evidence yet, my intuition tells me this is definitely related to that individual. Should we focus on? That's impossible. The President has now proposed an agreement with all nations, led by the United Nations, that no country or organization can investigate any information related to that individual. Agent Hill sensed it, and how could Director Nick Fury not sense it? But even if they had ample evidence, what good would it do? Now, that person's status on Earth is equivalent to the ancestor of all countries. Every country must worship him, otherwise no one can guarantee that he will not recreate the scene on the moon on Earth. No one wants a first-tier city in their country's territory to be completely wiped out from the Earth overnight. Forget it, you continue to investigate this matter, but as for the final result, to be honest, Nick Fury no longer has any hope. Ding ling ling, just answer it here. I want to see if anything big will happen this time. Nick Fury continued to speak stubbornly like last time. Hello, this is Hill. What did you say? Another scientist is missing? Or Professor Connors, who is under close surveillance by the police? Well, it's bad news again. Nick Fury didn't need Hill to report it. He already knew that this time it was bad news again. Director, Professor Connors is missing. Ding ling ling. Hill had just hung up the phone and was on the way to report to Nick Fury when her phone rang again. You're right here, you should go out and answer it this time. As Agent Hill's phone rang again, Nick Fury's originally tough tone suddenly changed. Even as the director, he couldn't bear to be slapped in the face twice in a row in front of his subordinates. Okay, Director, Hill forced a laugh, walked out of the office quickly, and answered the phone. But the moment she left the door, she suddenly opened it again. Her steps were no longer calm, and her originally calm face was now full of shock. Director, they said they found it in the ice in the Arctic. P.S. Thank you all for your monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. Please continue to read. Chapter 36 The Key to Immortality. At the North Pole, a group of uninvited guests arrived above the perennially frozen ice. Are you sure it's him? The leader, a balding man, dressed in a smart suit even in the Arctic's freezing cold, asked the person in charge sternly. If his trip was in vain, he'd show them what a formidable person can be when he gets angry. Sir, come with me and take a look at this. The person in charge didn't answer his question directly, but led him directly beneath the already excavated ice. Then, through the ice, they saw a circular shield the size of a pot lid, frozen in place. A silver five-pointed star could be vaguely seen in its center. Around the star, blue, red, and white stripes formed circles. It's him. Great. Looking at this significant shield, which he already had an identical one in his own home, the balding man instantly confirmed the identity of the frozen individual. At that moment, even though his expression managed to maintain composure, his voice seemed trembling from the cold. Excavate immediately. Then, led by Senior SHIELD Agent Phil Kelson, they began intensive excavation of the frozen figure beneath the ice. Soon, a body, frozen for decades, was carefully lifted onto a fighter jet and, with the utmost confidentiality and speed, flown to SHIELD headquarters. Also taken away was the round shield emblazoned with a five-pointed star. Meanwhile, over Antarctica, on the other side of the North Pole, a figure flew rapidly through the sky. Directly below the entrance to the Antarctic ice cave, a temporary rest area connected to all the surrounding laboratories, was being used as a temporary rest area. Hey, looks like there's someone new here. Tony, enjoying a glass of cheap red wine on the sofa, suddenly felt the entrance above him open. A gust of cold wind rushed in, causing him to shiver. Then, he noticed two figures suddenly appearing before him. Wait, there's a trash can over there. Don't spit on the floor. Ugh, okay, it's too late. Remember to clean up later. Tony fanned his nose with his hand a few times, trying to dispel the unpleasant smell. However, the nausea wouldn't go away. The red wine, just about to reach his lips, now tasted dull. Fuck, what a bummer, Tony grumbled, feeling somewhat disappointed, and turned to return to the lab. Suddenly, Peter called out from behind, wait, this is for you, huh? Looks familiar to me. Tony, turning around, hurriedly caught a bottle of expensive red wine Peter threw him. But after a closer look, his smile vanished. Yes, I got it from your villa. No need to thank me, damn it, you robber, Peter said, ignoring Tony's sudden grimace and leading Professor Connors, who had just finished vomiting, to a laboratory sealed by a multi-ton metal door. Boom. Peter easily slid the nearly 10-ton metal door open with one hand, then led Connors inside. Wait, are you guys going to start studying that green monster? Can you take me with you? I've dabbled in biology. Peering through the crack in the door, Tony peeked at the green figure inside. He stopped dwelling on the wine and volunteered to participate. Sorry, if you can promise not to leave this place for the rest of your life, I'll let you participate, Peter said, closing the heavy metal door from the inside. Damn it, never leave? How could that be? Tony couldn't accept such an offer. It had only been less than 2 weeks, and he already missed a big bed in his luxurious villa, and of course, those sexy blondes. But what on earth is that green monster that's so secretive about it? However, Tony quickly recovered from his reverie and couldn't help but be curious about the green figure in that special laboratory. Fuck, that guy's vomit hasn't been cleaned up yet. Professor Connors, I'm sure you're familiar with this thing, right? Peter said slowly, pointing to a giant green monster frozen in the lab. Of course I am. It's because of it that I almost lost everything. Connors smiled bitterly, a smile filled with self-deprecation. Blame his greed for this outcome. You've lost everything, lost the pursuit you've dedicated your life to, lost the arm you could have regenerated. Are you really willing to accept this? Peter asked slowly, looking at Connors. Not willing? What else can I do? All the research data I've spent decades on has been taken away. Even if I rediscovered my research, I'm afraid I wouldn't have the time or funds to support it. Although Connors felt reluctant, as a researcher, he knew that reinventing a project would cost a fortune in both time and money. Few would support his efforts to regenerate the regenerative potion. Indeed, There's really no need to reinvestigate your regeneration potion project, Peter said slowly, completely extinguishing the last glimmer of hope in Connor's eyes. But I think you could devote yourself to a greater cause. Peter's gaze slowly shifted to the frozen Hulk, his tone filled with temptation as he continued. A project that will not only regenerate your severed arm, but also grant you immense strength and even immortality. A project worthy of being recorded in history. Peter, like a successful mentor from a previous life on YouTube, patiently counseled Connors. So, what do I have to pay? Everything has its price, and Connors, having experienced complete failure, knew better than to expect a free lunch. You have a brilliant mind, and a little freedom, so, what's the name of our project? Connors agreed almost without hesitation. Or perhaps it was because he knew he couldn't refuse a superhuman at this point. As for a name, I don't have one yet. However, once you've thoroughly studied the secrets of this body, perhaps I'll give you another project. Peter spoke slowly, a hint of mystery in his eyes as he gazed at the frozen Hulk. Uncover the secrets hidden within this body. Connors gazed at the powerful form, his eyes filled with longing. This would be the key to human immortality. By the way, what exactly is that other project you're talking about? Granting human immortality was already a universal dream. But the other project Peter mentioned piqued Connors' curiosity. A project that would bring fear, perhaps even destruction. Peter didn't elaborate, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. Tony Stark, thank you, big brother, GS 200,000, for the gift. If you ever visit the Marvel Universe, I'll give you 10% of my assets and a set of Mk-50 armor. Let's go fight Thanos together. Chapter 37, The Watch from Asgard. Well, we'll discuss this project later. Right now, your goal is to explore all the secrets within this body. Anyway, Professor Connors, this lab is now yours. Remember, don't let anyone else in. If anyone tries to force their way in, call me. This lab was very important to Peter, so he addressed Connors with great seriousness. By the way, if you need any experimental equipment or materials, just let me know. Even if you need the Statue of Liberty, I can bring it to you right away. With that, Peter slowly walked towards the metal door and opened it with one hand, but didn't close it again. After all, Connors would need access to this lab. Damn it. I'm a billionaire, the most brilliant scientist in the world, and I've fallen to this state. As soon as he opened the door, Peter heard Tony muttering as he cleaned with tools. Ignoring Tony's complaints, Peter left Connors behind and instantly, slowly, escaped gravity, preparing to leave. Hey, this guy forgot to close the door. As Tony continued cleaning, he stole glances at the frozen monster in the lab. Tony Stark, remember to tell everyone else that no one except Professor Connors is allowed to approach that lab, or they'll face the consequences. Just as Tony was secretly gloating, thinking about sneaking into the lab alone while everyone else was resting to take a peek at the monster's body, Peter's commanding warning shattered his fantasy. Bang! The next moment, the metal door of the ice cave slammed shut again, and a faint sonic boom echoed. What kind of shady secret research is this guy having that Connors conduct? Watching Connors arrange the various experimental equipment in the lab according to his custom, Tony's curiosity was undoubtedly growing. Huh? Someone's watching me. At this moment, Peter, flying rapidly towards home, suddenly felt as if he was being watched. He stopped flying, scanned his surroundings with his supervision, and then looked up at the sky. If it's not a satellite, then what is it? Peter instantly ruled out the possibility of being monitored by humans using high-tech technology. Could it be that bald guy? Suddenly, Peter remembered a powerful being on Earth with a hairstyle reminiscent of a powerful figure. But why would she be monitoring me? Even if I disrupted the universe's sacred timeline, it should be the TVA that's arresting me. Never mind, even if it's her, so what? I'm not some superhuman who can be easily defeated by simple magic. As a superhuman with no weaknesses, Peter's magical and physical resistances were now as incredibly strong. With this thought, Peter's worries faded, and he instantly accelerated. After flying a long circle, passing through several countries along the way, he no longer felt the sense of being monitored. Meanwhile, in Asgard, the kingdom of the gods, one of the 9 realms like Earth, Heimdall, guarding the Rainbow Bridge, quickly withdrew his gaze, which could perceive all things in the 9 realms. This human has such powerful perception. When did such a powerful being appear on Midgard? However, his already icy expression now grew even more solemn. Heimdall, my friend, are you still there? Help me open the Rainbow Bridge. Just as Heimdall was still pondering the moment when such a powerful being had appeared on Earth, a voice suddenly rang in his ear, interrupting his thoughts. The next moment, without hesitation, Heimdall plunged his silver sword directly into the opening mechanism of the Rainbow Bridge. Instantly, silver lightning illuminated the entire mechanism. The Rainbow Bridge, connecting all of Asgard, suddenly erupted in an unparalleled brilliance. Colorful energy flowed continuously through it, like a colorful thread spanning the entire galaxy, converging towards the end of the Rainbow Bridge. An immense amount of energy instantly erupted from the bird beak-shaped device at the end of the Rainbow Bridge, forming a colorful beam of light that directly spanned the vast 9 realms. Puff! As the Rainbow Bridge successfully opened, several figures appeared in Asgard, accompanied by its colorful glow. Along with them, the corpse of the massive monster was transported. Haha, our Asgardian warriors are invincible. Upon their appearance, the figures raised their blood-stained weapons and cheered wildly. The massive monster's body seemed to be their prize. Among the crowd stood a burly man wearing a silver-winged helmet, silver metal armor, and long golden hair. He slowly approached Heimdall, patted his shoulder, and then asked with some confusion, "Heimdall, you hesitated just now. Why?" "I saw a powerful new god appear in Midgard, facing Thor, Odin's son, future heir to the throne of Asgard, the powerful god of thunder, and, of course, Heimdall's best friend." Heimdall made no secret of what he had witnessed. "Powerful new gods have appeared in Midgard? How is that possible? I was there just hundreds of years ago, and the humans there were incredibly weak. Even as a child, I could easily defeat hundreds of them." The conceited Thor naturally refused to believe Heimdall's words. "Furthermore, I was once revered by these ignorant people as the great god of thunder, and I still do." Thor, clutching his silver hammer, Mjolnir, scoffed at Heimdall's words. It wasn't that he looked down on humans, but they were simply too weak for the warriors of Asgard. The powerful Asgardians were like omnipotent gods to them. "Thor, hundreds of years have passed since Odin, the All-Father, issued a decree prohibiting anyone from setting foot in Midgard. The human realm has undergone tremendous changes. They've rapidly developed technology and mastered destructive weapons. They no longer believe in gods, and they no longer even need our protection." Heimdall observed humanity's rapid development. Especially recently, an incredibly powerful being has emerged among humans, whom all call the earthly god. Heimdall's expression was extremely solemn, but there was something he hadn't uttered. In that human, he saw a power comparable to that of Odin, the father of the gods. "Earthly god," Thor repeated the word, his face filled with a surge of fighting spirit. Chapter 38 Thunder God falls from the sky. Time flew by, and nearly 2 weeks had passed. Our hero, Superman, has not appeared in public for several days, but thanks to his presence, the city's crime rate has dropped by 80%. The president even publicly stated that he intends to personally present Mr. Superman with the World Peace Prize. Osborn Industries reached a cooperation agreement with the military the day before yesterday, and will soon provide the military with more futuristic individual combat equipment. The Stark Industries biogenetic laboratory was established a few days ago. According to people nearby, they often hear agonizing screams coming from it at night. Billionaire Tony Stark has not been seen in public for nearly a month. According to a mysterious person, he has been kidnapped. A casual glance at this morning's newspapers revealed that Superman's name was once again on the front page. Thanks to the constant publicity in the media and newspapers, almost everyone, from 80-year-old grandfathers to 3-year-old children, had heard of Superman. Every day during Peter's school day, he could hear passers-by discussing him. However, this incident did not have a significant impact on his life. He still attended school during the day and found time to visit the secret Antarctic laboratory at night. With the energy problem solved, research on the nanosuit progressed smoothly and was now able to form a suit. However, the speed at which the nanoparticles coalesced into the suit was still relatively slow. It took several minutes for the molecular structure to stabilize completely and coalesce into a solid form. Reed and other scientists were currently researching how to increase the speed at which the nanoparticles could build their molecular structure. As for Tony, after successfully building the arc reactor, he began working on the algorithm for the nanosuit's various form changes. In short, Peter's nanosuit would be completed in a short while. Although it was the weekend, before school let out yesterday, Peter was invited to a special technology exhibition. Gwen's new mentor was preparing to showcase his latest research, the result of over a decade of dedicated effort, in front of the media. Sure enough, the world is full of hostility towards Spider-Man, just lost a mentor who could become a villain, and she's found another professor who could also become a villain to continue as her mentor. On the way to the exhibition, Peter couldn't help but feel tired for Gwen, Spider-Woman. Perhaps she is the child of this world, and trouble always finds her. But Dr. Octopus's artificial son seems more appealing to me. Peter had agreed to attend this special technology exhibition solely because he needed to personally confirm something extremely important to him. Can an artificial sun grant me the same strength as a real sun? Meanwhile, in a hospital ward decorated in a retro style, a perfectly shaped man lay in bed. Even in a tank top, his muscular features were clearly visible. A vintage radio played a baseball game from long ago. Suddenly, the man in the bed began to shake violently. He mumbled something, as if lost in some unpleasant memory. The next moment, his eyes fluttered open, and he sat up in a flash. Where is this place? He glanced around the room with a puzzled look. This game. He listened attentively to the familiar game description on the radio, and his already perplexed expression became even more serious. Good morning, Captain Rogers. A nurse dressed in a vintage nurse's uniform entered, smiling and greeting the newly awakened man. Where is this? Who are you? The man asked, his tone a bit cold, as he looked at the nurse warily. This is a surgical recovery room in New York City, the nurse answered without hesitation. After all, this really was New York City. However, as the retro radio announced the final result of the baseball game, the man, who had been relatively calm, finally lost his composure. Where am I now? What is this place? He stood up, his nearly 5'3" height and incredibly strong muscles creating an intimidating presence. I don't know what you're talking about. The nurse's expression grew flustered at the questioning. This game took place in May 1941. I know, because I was there. The man continued to question the nurse, his expression now fierce. Bang! The next moment, the door burst open, and two armed men rushed in, charging towards the man. Although newly awake, Captain America, a battle-hardened warrior, possessed strength and combat skills unmatched by ordinary men. He easily dispatched the two armed men. Steve Rogers dashed from the suspicious ward without hesitation. He then arrived at a hallway filled with staff. Gazing at the unfamiliar people and surroundings, Steve finally realized he had arrived in a place he found almost unacceptable. In the next moment, desperate to determine his exact location, he dashed straight out of the hallway and onto the bustling street. In the surveillance room in the hallway, Nick Fury and Coulson stared intently at the footage of Captain America dashing from the hallway. Director, why didn't you follow my advice and use another year's game, instead leaving such a serious flaw? Coulson was puzzled. He had clearly warned Nick Fury that Captain America, a baseball fan himself, likely already knew the proceedings and results of the 1941 game. Why did he insist on using it? Coulson, what we need is a Captain America who can accept reality quickly, not a recently awakened soldier who needs psychological treatment. Some things are easier for him to accept you if he discovers them on his own than if we explain them to him. Come on, it's time we went to meet this old fogey. Steve, standing on a busy street, stared at the towering buildings around him and the screens that continuously played images of a flying Superman battling a ferocious green monster. His expression was filled with shock and disbelief. Is that Superman? Watching Superman soar through the sky with his signature thermal vision, Steve's worldview completely collapsed. He couldn't tell if the images were movies or real life. He just had a feeling he'd slept a bit too long. Suddenly, countless black cars surrounded him. A man wearing an eye patch, with no hair on his head, looking like a black, boiled egg, slowly approached him. Don't be nervous, Captain. I apologize for that performance, but we'd better let you know everything slowly. Hearing Nick Fury's words, Coulson's face couldn't help but tremble. He was the director, after all. You've been asleep for about 70 years, and during that time, the world has undergone tremendous changes, almost beyond your imagination. Listening to Nick Fury's explanation, hearing that 70 years had passed, and thinking of Carter, who was still waiting for him to return and dance, Steve's face was filled with deep sorrow. I missed out on something. Boom. A massive rainbow beam of light suddenly descended from the sky. You said those changes beyond my imagination also include that guy with a hammer. Before a heartbroken Steve could even sigh, he pointed to a figure behind Nick Fury, clad in silver armor, flashing with lightning, and asked, P.S. A new weekly recommended spot is coming soon. I hope everyone will continue to read the latest chapters every day. Thank you everyone. Boing, dong dong dong. Chapter 39 Captain Wu Wei appears. Midgard, I'm back. Thor, armor-clad and Mjolnir with hammer in hand, slowly emerged from the rainbow-colored beam of light, his powerful figure. I want to see what this new god, so adored by Heimdall, is capable of. Thor, at this point, hadn't experienced any setbacks. His arrogance and belligerence had led him to Earth without hesitation, ready to challenge Heimdall upon hearing his admiration for a human. Despite Heimdall's vehement attempts to stop him, and despite his father's centuries-old ban on anyone traveling to Earth, rest assured, Father, and Heimdall, I will personally secure victory, and with this unquestionable victory, I will firmly establish my claim to the throne of Asgard. Furthermore, today was the crucial day Thor was to inherit the throne of Asgard. Hey, you who likes to play Thor, please put down your hammer. While Thor's appearance looked impressive and unconventional, the director of SHIELD couldn't be so easily intimidated. He signaled Callison to evacuate the crowd as he addressed Thor. A hammer? Ignorant human. This was bestowed upon me by my father. It represents the supreme glory of Asgard. Forged by the Dwarf King from the core of a dying star, it's Mjolnir, a supreme artifact capable of summoning thunder. How dare you call it an ordinary hammer? Besides, I am Thor, the god of thunder, from Asgard. I'm not impersonating anyone. Hearing Nick Fury's words, Thor's expression was as if he'd been insulted, and he eagerly defended himself and the hammer in his hand. A crackling sound echoed. Meanwhile, Thor's hammer, as if sensing the insult, instantly emitted brilliant silver lightning. All right, whatever you say, it is. But now, please calm down, put it down, and submit to our inspection. As a dazzling flash of lightning flashed from the Mjolnir hammer, every SHIELD member, including Nick Fury, instantly drew their pistols and pointed them at Thor. Nick Fury's expression grew even more solemn at this moment. What are those people doing? However, even at this tense moment, some onlookers, eager to stir up trouble, peered from outside SHIELD's perimeter. Looks like they were filming a movie. I just took a peek, and the special effects are amazing. They didn't even use green screen. A taller young man, seemingly witnessing the scene, stared with intense curiosity and surprise. I saw it too. The hammer in the armored actor's hand actually discharges electricity. I wonder how they do it? Maybe a Tesla coil, another young man chimed in. Asgardian warriors will never lay down their weapons until their death. Get out of the way. I need to confront that guy called Superman. If you're late, I won't be able to make it to my coronation. Thor spoke to Nick Fury and the others surrounding him, ready to challenge Superman with his hammer. Stop. Please put down your weapons immediately, or we'll shoot. Nick Fury naturally wouldn't let this unknown individual leave so easily. After all, no one knew what kind of chaos he would bring to Earth. What a bunch of annoying people, being surrounded by a group of people, preventing him from leaving and pointing strange objects at him. Thor instantly became furious. The next moment, he raised Mjolnir. A thick dark cloud instantly gathered in the sky, almost covering the entire Earth. Thunder and lightning raged within the dark clouds, as if a terrifying apocalypse had arrived. Oh no. It's thundering. Go home and collect your clothes. The wise people nearby, sensing the danger, quickly fled. Crack. From the dark sky, a silver-white lightning bolt thundered down, striking directly at Thor's raised Mjolnir. Instantly, powerful lightning encircled Thor, and combined with his magnificent silver armor, a terrifying aura instantly spread throughout the surroundings. It was like the true god of thunder descending to Earth, a feeling that made one unable to resist worshipping him. These annoying creatures, time to scare them off. Thor had used this tactic countless times on Earth. Anyone who saw him like this would either kneel and worship him as a god, or flee in a flash. However, he didn't realize that centuries later, Earth's technology had advanced, and atheism was sweeping the world. Even aliens would capture you and study you. Moreover, everyone present was an elite SHIELD agent. Even under the blazing lightning, everyone felt their scalps tingle, as if their hair were being pulled. Well, only Nick Fury didn't feel that way. But none of them fled or even retreated. Nick Fury knew they were in dire danger, and without hesitation, he ordered an attack. Countless bullets gushed from the rifles. The elite agent's marksmanship was nearly unerring, especially at such close range, where a miss was virtually impossible. Ding, ding, ding. However, the countless bullets piercing Thor felt like steel, sending up countless sparks. What a bunch of damned bastards. He had only intended to scare them away with his thunder god form, but he'd only been met with a ferocious attack. He didn't know what weapons they were wielding, But a bunch of mere mortals had actually caused even the Thunder God to feel a tinge of pain. At that moment, he couldn't endure it any longer. While he didn't want to harm Earth's mortals, he wasn't a fool who wouldn't fight back. Whether he was a fool or not was debatable. For the glory of Asgard, having his dignity as the Thunder God trampled upon by these mortals, Thor roared to the heavens. The next moment, even more violent lightning erupted from the dark clouds. Then, Thor pointed his lightning-encrusted Mjolnir directly at the bald black man. As a seasoned warrior, Thor understood the principle of capturing the enemy first. Instantly, a dazzling bolt of silver lightning blasted towards Nick Fury. The terrifying power and breakneck speed left even director Nick Fury momentarily unable to react. Just as the silver lightning was about to strike him, turning his already dark skin even darker than charcoal, a figure suddenly appeared behind him with unimaginable speed. They tackled him to the ground, the brilliant lightning barely glancing at his scalp. He, who had previously felt little, suddenly felt a tingling sensation even greater than anyone else's. Boom! The dodged silver lightning struck a bulletproof car behind them, instantly causing a powerful explosion. However, the two men had no time to worry about whether anyone was injured. This time, you won't be so lucky, the figure, surrounded by lightning, once again pointed his hammer at the fallen men. The dazzling lightning from the hammer was already gathering, poised to burst forth once more. "Captain, hold on." At this critical moment, a voice suddenly rang out from the side. Then, a crackling sound echoed through the air, and a circular shield was thrown by the returning Kelson. A graceful trajectory traced the air. The next moment, a figure rolled twice on the ground. Then suddenly leaped up, caught the spinning shield in the air, and instantly blocked the path of the lightning. After 70 years, Captain America makes his return. P.S. Please read, vote for the monthly ticket, and recommend. Thank you everyone. Chapter 40, The Bright Star. It seems not all Earth's inhabitants are so weak. Thor, clutching Mjolnir, couldn't help but look with admiration at Captain America, who, despite the devastating effects of his powerful thunderbolt, managed to hold his shield against the onslaught. Alice, humans are only humans after all. They can never compare to true gods. A moment later, Thor's gaze hardened. The lightning unleashed by Mjolnir in his hand instantly grew even more violent. Under the terrifying blast of thunder, even ordinary people several meters away felt a surge of surging energy. They could only retreat, leaving the battlefield to two inhuman beings. However, despite being known as the strongest human being and claiming to be evenly matched with anyone, Captain America's essence as a human remained unchanged. Under the immensely violent lightning, even though his sturdy shield could block and absorb some of the current, the immense force still tore his body back. His feet left a deep groove in the ground. Captain America persevered with overwhelming willpower. Even as his body retreated, his resolve remained unwavering. Excellent. Human, you possess an incredibly strong will. You are a true rival to me. Seeing Captain America's unwavering resolve erupt under his onslaught, even Thor was moved. Next, I will use my immense strength to show you that no matter how strong your will is, it can never overcome the vast disparity in strength. Thor, so serious, abandoned the use of his thunderbolt and instead slowly tightened his grip on Mjolnir, his eyes fixed on Captain America, his fighting spirit etched in them. The same words go to you. Humanity will not yield to any megalomaniac who calls himself a god. It was true decades ago, and it will be true decades later. Clutching the all-too-familiar shield in one hand, Captain America seemed transported back to the battlefield of decades ago, his eyes filled with determination. Enough of the idle chatter. I can't find that guy called Superman, so I'll use you as a warm-up. Thor didn't hesitate. He leaped several meters high, gripping Thor's hammer tightly and smashing it down at Captain America. Captain America reacted just as quickly, raising his shield the moment Thor's hammer fell. Boom! The moment Thor's hammer and the vibranium shield made contact, a terrifying roar erupted. A powerful shockwave instantly spread outward, its terrifying force overturning several nearby cars. However, there was no movie scene where Thor was flung away by the shield's recoil. Instead, each retreated a distance before charging at the other again, brandishing their shields and hammers in a frenzied clash. Meanwhile, as Thor and Captain America battled fiercely, a laboratory in a remote suburb of New York City was abuzz with activity. Countless scientific research enthusiasts and some media reporters were invited to witness what was purportedly the greatest invention of the century. Ladies and gentlemen, you are fortunate to be here, for you are about to witness history, You will be recorded in history along with today's experiment. In the center of the somewhat sparsely furnished laboratory, a middle-aged man, plainly dressed and slightly overweight, confidently introduced his work to the assembled audience. Energy has always been a limiting factor in human development. Just like the famous water bucket effect, energy shortages have determined the upper limit of human technological advancement, but today, you will have the privilege of witnessing history, witnessing the most significant moment in human energy history. After today, humanity will no longer worry about energy shortages. You will witness the birth of a new type of energy, a safe, sustainable, and even permanent energy source that will provide affordable electricity to everyone. Dr. Otto's face was filled with an incredibly confident smile until this moment. Next, please allow me to introduce my assistant, he said, slowly walking to the side, to a device covered with a cloth, and then suddenly pulling it open. Wow, what's this? Everyone present, except Peter, gasped in amazement at the sight of the unique mechanical device with 4 metal tentacles. Peter, you don't seem surprised at all. Even Gwen, Dr. Otto's intern standing beside Peter, was seeing this octopus-like robotic arm for the first time. She was curious why Peter didn't seem surprised at all. It's just a robotic arm. What's so surprising about it? Peter replied calmly. Indeed, in his previous world, this robotic arm would undoubtedly be a remarkable invention. But in this Marvel universe, where cutting-edge technology reigns supreme, it's simply not impressive enough. These 4 robotic arms are intelligent ones I built specifically for today's nuclear fusion experiment. They're resistant to high temperatures, magnetism, and radiation, Dr. Otto said as he slowly removed his shirt, revealing his slightly overweight torso, and stood in front of the robotic arm. Then, the arm activated, and a mechanical attachment mechanism, similar to a human spine, slowly attached itself to his spine. At that moment, Dr. Octopus was born. SHH, this thing looks painful. Even Peter couldn't help but admire Dr. Otto's near madness in pursuit of his experiment. You have to understand, this robotic arm isn't just attached to the skin. The mechanism behind it, used to secure it, penetrates directly into the nerves of the spinal cord, allowing it to be controlled with the mind. Peter, do you think Dr. Otto can pull it off? Gwen felt a sense of foreboding at the situation. It wasn't spider sense, but it was even more alarming. She had a feeling something might go wrong. I have a bad feeling. Despite saying this, Peter's expression remained calm, as if he wasn't worried about anything happening. Everyone, keep your eyes open, because the grand finale is about to begin. At this moment, Otto, now in the form of Dr. Octopus, had already arrived in front of the laser ignition device. By the way, we also want to thank Osborne Industries for their kind donation of the rare element, tritium. As a robotic arm slowly placed tritium at the center of the ignition device, the invisible magnetic field within it instantly pinned it to the very center. It slowly floated into the air and began to spin rapidly. Fasten your seatbelts, we are about to depart, Otto, wearing sunglasses, slowly spoke as he pressed the laser ignition mechanism. The next moment, several laser beams precisely struck the tritium at the center of the device. The terrifying heat instantly activated it, and a new, miniature star slowly blossomed in the center of the device. Wow, is this an artificial miniature sun? Even though the scorching heat and powerful radiation were completely blocked by the magnetic shield, everyone present couldn't help but exclaim in delight. Sorry, Gwen, I need to leave for something. Just as Gwen was feeling a strange tinge of worry, Peter beside her suddenly spoke. Peter, what's wrong? Gwen wanted to ask, but Peter had already left without hesitation. Damn it, looking at Peter's leaving back, and then turning around to look at the bright star, Gwen did not chase after him after all. Instead, she retreated behind everyone and walked into a corner where no one else could see her. Chapter 41 You Are the Real Heroes. In New York's Times Square, as countless giant screens played the battle between Superman and the Hulk, an equally spectacular battle unfolded in the center of the square. Captain America, wielding a circular vibranium shield, battled a muscular blonde man clad in ornate armor and wielding a massive silver hammer. As the two men exchanged blows, their shields and hammers clashing constantly, their free hands clenched into fists, unleashing tireless blows upon blows, each one striking the opponent's flesh. Terrifying power surged, and the interplay of hammer and shield unleashed powerful shockwaves. The sheer force of these shockwaves could easily overturn a car. The SHIELD agents, previously in close proximity, had already retreated dozens of meters. The battle between these two inhumanly powerful beings was simply beyond the reach of ordinary men. Director, do you think Captain can win? Coulson watched the battle from afar, his eyes filled with concern for his idol. Captain. No matter what the outcome, we must prepare early, Nick Fury said in a slow, deep voice, his expression solemn. Gather all nearby S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel who can make it. Tell Rumlow to bring all his special forces teams here. As the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury had to prepare for the worst at this moment. After giving these instructions, Nick Fury continued to ponder, as if hesitating about something. Boom. As another car was destroyed in the aftermath of the fight between the two men, Nick Fury finally made up his mind and continued. Also, tell Barton to rush over with the experimental results as soon as possible, but director, those experiments haven't been completed yet. If they were exposed now, I'm afraid. Hearing Nick Fury's decision, Coulson warned with a serious expression. No need to worry about that. No matter what, we must solve this serious problem. Nick Fury stared at Captain America, who was already looking a little weak on the battlefield, his eyes filled with determination. As expected, Nick Fury's concerns were not unfounded. Shortly after his order was issued, bang! Captain America was instantly sent flying by Thor, his entire body flying dozens of meters before crashing into a car. The terrifying force of the impact dented the bulletproof vehicle, demonstrating the sheer force of the blow. Captain America was also flung back by the immense recoil, landing heavily on the ground with a thud. Although he had successfully blocked Thor's hammer with his shield, he was exhausted and had no time to react before Thor's powerful kick landed on him. Haha. Asgardian warriors are the strongest, without even summoning divine power. Thor, relying solely on physical strength, easily defeated Captain America, a figure hailed as possessing the ultimate human strength. Thor, holding Mjolnir high in his hand, roared with laughter. Captain, concern filled the surrounding agents' eyes at Captain America's defeat. Director, let's go fight that guy. Some, indignant, prepared to charge forward and confront Thor. Wait, however, the excited agents were stopped by Nick Fury. Hey, you haven't defeated me yet. The next moment, Captain America, having been knocked flying, slowly and with difficulty climbed to his feet. Wiping the blood from his mouth, he gripped his shield tightly as he walked towards Thor with slow, determined steps. Arriving before Thor, Captain America once again struck a fighting stance. I could fight you all day long, haha. I admire you more and more. You deserve to be remembered. Gazing at Captain America's tenacious determination, Thor completely erased the contempt in his gaze. My name is Steve Rogers, from Brooklyn. My name is Thor Odinson, son of Odin, the All-Father, from Asgard. Facing his respected opponent, Thor solemnly introduced himself. In Asgard, giving your all is the greatest respect for our opponent, so, from now on, I will use my full strength to completely defeat you. Thor's eyes were solemn. In this moment, respect for his opponent made him decide to give it his all. Come on, Captain America stood firm, his calm eyes betraying boundless determination. An invisible aura emanated from both of them. It seems dark. Suddenly, the sky was obscured by a thick blanket of dark clouds, thunder and lightning surging within, as if brewing an immensely terrifying power. The next moment, Thor's body slowly lifted off the ground, floating upward. Crack! A bolt of lightning exploded in the void, revealing the terrifying might of the long simmering dark clouds. Like a silver dragon piercing through the clouds, a streak of silver lightning struck Thor's body. Instantly, streaks of silver lightning swirled around Thor. Thor's hammer held high, looked like a devastating god. Come on, we humans are far stronger than you imagine. Gazing at Thor, who resembled the true god of thunder, Captain America didn't flinch even a step. His head held high, a testament to his unyielding spirit. His resolute eyes held an endless fighting spirit. Thor, finally gathering his terrifying aura and strength, instantly locked eyes with Captain America below him, his gaze like a sharp arrow. In the next moment, Thor's body erupted with terrifying momentum, and he charged at Captain America at breakneck speed. Lightning swirled around his body, forming a long, silver streak in his wake. However, just as this terrifying attack was about to strike Captain America, who waited in awe below, two bright red, flame-like beams of light instantly streaked across the distant sky. Their incredible speed was so rapid that even Thor had no time to react, and they struck him directly. The next moment, the beams, packed with immense force, instantly sent Thor flying. The terrifying force propelled Thor's body through several buildings. After piercing through several more, It finally came to a stop. Boom. Yet, it continued its momentum, slamming into the building, collapsing it completely. The shattered wreckage completely buried Thor's body. That's Superman. At that moment, everyone, including Captain America, wasn't focused on the flying Thor, but on a towering figure hurtling down from the distant sky. Bang! In the blink of an eye, the figure had descended from the distant sky, even faster than their gazes could reach. Oh, no wonder they all like to land like this. It's really cool, Peter, having personally experienced the superhero's landing, remarked. Don't worry about the knee pain, it's just so cool. Is this the guy who wants to challenge me? Looking at the figure buried beneath the collapsed building, Peter slowly stood up and spoke in a deep voice. Director, you had the foresight to evacuate all residents within a few miles. Otherwise, beside Nick Fury, Coulson, gazing at the blasted buildings, said with immense admiration. But I feel like the cleared area might not be enough. Are you that human hero up there, Superman? Captain America couldn't help but hold his breath as he gazed at the figure landing handsomely before him, pointing to the image on a large nearby screen, his tone thick with disbelief. Hearing the voice, Peter slowly turned, his gaze lingering on Captain America for a moment before slowly turning to the crowd in the distance. No, you are the real heroes. P.S. These 2 days are crucial days for next week's recommended chapters, so please take the time to read the latest chapters every day. Thank you all. As the title says, you are the real heroes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 Defeat You and Your BGM. This guy, so kind. Hearing Superman praise them as true heroes, many present felt a warm glow in their hearts. Only Nick Fury's calm face flickered with doubt. The information he had gathered didn't show Superman to be so kind. After all, not a single one of the missing scientists had returned to their homes. Boom. Just as nearly everyone gazed at Peter with admiration, a resounding explosion shattered the silence. From the rubble of the building where Thor had been buried, a figure suddenly leaped out and soared into the sky. The already dense, dark clouds in the sky grew even thicker, completely blocking out the sunlight, preventing it from shining through to the earth. A massive shadow enveloped the landscape, as if night were approaching. Mr. Superman saw Peter turn, his gaze fixed on the figure in the empty clouds, as if about to meet him. But Captain America, standing behind him, suddenly spoke. Be careful. As Peter slowly turned, the captain spoke with some concern. Thank you, take good care of him. Peter nodded in surprise, then spoke gravely to Nick Fury and the others in the distance. He turned again, gazing at the figure of thunder gathering in the dark clouds above. What's going on? The next moment, Peter's palm slowly rotated and clenched into a fist. A strange wave of energy instantly emanated from him. Everyone noticed that the tiny rubble and dust on the surrounding ground slowly began to float up, coalescing into a miniature hurricane, slowly swirling around Peter. Bang! A loud explosion blew away the dust swirling around Peter. A spiderweb-like crack appeared in the solid ground, and Peter, like a cannonball, soared into the sky. You're right. The changes in this world are beyond my imagination. Looking up at the figure soaring into the sky, Captain America spoke slowly to Nick Fury, who had joined him, his voice still refusing to calm down. Meanwhile, in a laboratory in suburban New York, countless reporters and technology enthusiasts gazed in astonishment at the sun-like star in the center of the laboratory. At that moment, it seemed almost divinely created. Haha. I did it. I finally did it. Dr. Octopus's metal tentacle circled the miniature sun, ensuring its stability, while excitedly announcing his successful experiment to everyone present. His intense joy spread to those around him. Clap, clap, clap. Everyone present, including Dr. Otto's wife, couldn't help but applaud. Only in a corner, hidden from view, Gwen, now in her spider suit, felt even more worried. She saw that the miniature sun, while still relatively stable, was continuously releasing streams of golden flames like a solar storm. Hey, what did you say? Superman in New York Plaza? And there's a guy calling himself Thor trying to challenge him? Okay, I'll be right there. Amidst the excited applause, an inopportune voice suddenly rose. Immediately, the reporter, who had just hung up the phone, left the laboratory with his team without hesitation. What? Superman vs. Thor? Is that true? I'm coming right over. This is big news. The reporter who had just left seemed to signal the news, and within the next minute, almost every other reporter and media outlet picked up on the news and left without hesitation. In less than a minute, the once bustling crowd was now deserted. Only a handful of people remained, still unsure of what was happening. Eddie, aren't you going? Everything about Superman is big news right now. Definitely headlining. As for this experiment? Who's going to be interested tomorrow? A reporter with a camera seemed unfazed, still diligently filming the entire experiment. Before leaving, his friend couldn't help but warn him. Forget it. I think this experiment is even more groundbreaking than Superman. If I don't stay, I'll definitely regret it. The young reporter slowly shook his head, firmly rejecting his friend's offer. Okay, whatever you say. Without further ado, his friend simply turned and left. Arriving too late would mean missing everything. No, you can't leave. Why would you leave? My experiment has succeeded. It's a groundbreaking achievement, one that could earn me the next Nobel Prize. Watching countless people leave in a short time, leaving only a few, Dr. Octopus was instantly overcome with emotion. He had painstakingly studied for over a decade, all for today, before the witnesses of the media and reporters, to complete his experiment. However, what he saw before him was too much for him to accept. Suddenly, perhaps distracted by his excitement, his octopus tentacles failed to repair a section of the energy shield torn by the solar storm. The next moment, a unique gravitational force suddenly emanated from the mini-sun and instantly swept around. With the escaping energy, the incredibly sturdy laboratory seemed to be gripped by an invisible hand. Creaking. The surrounding metal began to bend. Crashing. The glass followed suit, instantly shattering. However, the shattered glass, drawn by the powerful gravitational force, flew rapidly towards Dr. Otto's wife. The panicked woman could only scream helplessly. The next moment, a figure in a spider suit suddenly descended from the sky, picked up Dr. Otto's wife, and dodged the incoming glass shatters. Doctor, it's out of control. The experiment has failed. Shut it down. Gwen, who had saved Dr. Otto's wife, shouted anxiously to Dr. Otto. No, the experiment hasn't failed. I can control it. I can definitely stabilize it. However, at this moment, Otto seemed to have gone mad. No, your experiment was never going to succeed. Although the shield you created prevents all energy, including gravity, from escaping, the consequences of this powerful energy will be even more severe. In the sky above New York's Times Square, Peter suddenly sensed a massive energy emerging from afar. Most importantly, this energy seemed to have an inexplicable attraction to him. Could it be? Looking in that familiar direction, Peter seemed to suddenly realize something. Damn you! You dare to be distracted when facing me. Seeing Peter, his opponent, distracted by something else, Thor felt instantly slighted and couldn't help but yell at him. Thor, huh? Let's finish this quickly, I have things to do later. Peter looked away, his expression calm and urging him lightly. Well, since you're so eager to be defeated by me, I'll grant you your wish. Being so slighted by Peter, the proud Thor couldn't help but feel furious. He was about to charge at Peter, hammer in hand. Wait, what? Are you scared? It's not too late to admit defeat, Thor asked, somewhat bewildered. Hey, does anyone have a player? Play some upbeat music for me, please. However, Peter didn't answer Thor, instead shouting to the people on the ground. Let me do it, a beautiful girl from the SHIELD team responded without hesitation. She then pulled out her computer and began typing away. In just less than 10 seconds, passionate music began to sound on the big screens throughout Times Square. Is this your new recruit? Nick Fury couldn't help but turn and asked Kelson. Yes, her name is Daisy, a genius hacker, in the sky, listening to the music floating over the entire Times Square. Peter's expression froze instantly. Okay, then I will defeat you in your BGM. Looking at Thor, a bright red light accumulated in Peter's eyes. P.S. Please recommend, please vote for the monthly ticket, please read. Thank you everyone. Chapter 43 Seizing Thor's Hammer. Dear audience, we meet again. A helicopter hovered several kilometers away from New York Square. It's an honor to witness the heroic presence of humanity's hero, Superman, once again today, the reporter said from the helicopter. The photographer beside him adjusted the lens, capturing a close-up of the distant figure. And across from Superman is a man who calls himself the God of Thunder, The photographer followed his instructions, turning the camera to the other figure. He dares to challenge our hero. Is that bravery? Or ignorance? Now, let us witness together who will emerge victorious in this battle between the two. However, on a personal note, I support our hero, Superman. He is the most powerful and will surely triumph. Now, let us wait and see. As the reporter's introduction concluded, the photographer snapped in a wide-angle lens, capturing both figures in the sky. At the same time, as Peter's eyes filled with a terrifying red glow, Thor, unable to contain himself, roared in anger. As Thor roared, the gathering dark clouds in the sky began to roll violently, as if brewing an immensely terrifying force. Crack! A thunderous roar resounded through the heavens and earth, and a bolt of lightning, as thick as a bucket, instantly struck Thor's hammer. Furious thunder and lightning swirled around the silver hammer. The next moment, Thor unleashed Mjolnir without hesitation, aiming it at the figure opposite him. There was no hesitation before the battle began. Thor immediately unleashed his mighty thunderbolt, vowing to completely defeat his opponent with overwhelming force. However, as Thor's hammer unleashed an immensely violent surge of lightning, Peter across from him showed no hesitation either. The crimson light that had been gathering in his eyes suddenly ignited. Two fiery red beams, carrying terrifying force, charged directly towards the silver lightning. In the blink of an eye, the two attacks collided without a trace of surprise. Boom! The moment the two energies collided, a resounding explosion shook the earth. Immediately, a powerful shockwave swept across the surrounding area at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even a helicopter hovering miles away was instantly swept away by the powerful shockwave, like a lone boat in a roaring ocean, nearly capsized. Quick, get further away. They had originally thought this distance was far enough, but now, without hesitation, they flew further into the distance. As the terrifying shockwave spread, the two energies remained deadlocked in the void, refusing to dissipate. As the saying goes, the left side always loses in a wave battle. But now, the camera footage clearly showed that the left-hand side, like a fiery red energy, unsurprisingly, had the absolute upper hand. The violent silver lightning was repeatedly defeated by the red pillar of fire. In just a few seconds, the silver lightning could no longer maintain its momentum. The bright red pillar of flame completely filled the sky, continuing unabated, and directly struck Thor's body in the air. The powerful impact carried by the pillar sent Thor flying several kilometers away. The powerful impact even caused him to lose his grip on Thor's hammer, causing it to fall to the ground. Bang! Mjolnir plummeted to the ground, shattering a crater several meters deep in the solid earth. Chief, should we? Looking at the hammer crashing not far from them, Coulson felt a surge of anxiety. Everyone else, remain on guard. Let's go take a look. Nick Fury didn't hesitate. He knew exactly what Thor's hammer represented. Is this Thor's hammer? Arriving at the edge of the pit, gazing at the massive silver hammer at its center, a strange urge seemed to well up in everyone's heart. Captain America even slowly approached Thor's hammer, his eyes etched with eagerness. Captain, seeing Captain America seemingly trying to touch Thor's hammer, Coulson couldn't help but feel a little worried. However, Nick Fury said in a deep voice, let him try. The next moment, Captain, without hesitation, slowly placed his right hand on the hammer's handle, hammer of the gods. Suddenly, Thor's hammer began to slowly vibrate. Could he really lift it? Nick Fury and the others stared in disbelief at the sight before them. We'll drive our ships to new land. The singing continued to echo around them, but Thor's hammer, as if suddenly summoned by some force, soared into the sky and vanished. Ahem, I didn't even use any force, it flew away on its own. Captain America looked at his empty right hand, a look of embarrassment in his face. You're overestimating your own abilities. Peter, watching Thor being instantly sent flying, remained impassive in the air. If Thor, after Avengers 3, had fully awakened his thunderbolt powers and wielded Stormwind, he might still have had a fighting chance against him now. But Thor, now, was far too weak for Peter. While we have the time, why not go see what's going on over there? Peter slowly turned and looked in the direction he had just noticed. There, something still drew him there, and the feeling was growing stronger. However, just as Peter was about to fly over to investigate, a sudden sound of air-piercing ripped through the air from behind him. You're not done yet, are you? Then I'll play with you some more. Turning around, Peter's eyes slowly grew cold as he watched Thor, twirling Mjolnir in his hand and hurtling towards him at supersonic speed. Valhalla, I am coming. Accompanied by the uplifting background music, Thor seemed to be buffed, His divine power fully awakened. His eyes were now filled with silver lightning, and countless bolts of lightning swirled across his silver armor. Behind him, a long, silver lightning tail made him look like a meteor streaking through the air. Hundreds of meters away from Peter, he abruptly stopped spinning Mjolnir. Thor's silver hammer pointed directly at the figure ahead. At supersonic speed, carrying an incredibly terrifying impact, and with unstoppable momentum, Thor slammed directly into Peter in the air. Peter remained calm as Thor charged towards him, his eyes slightly cold as he slowly raised his hand. Bang! The speeding Thor crashed into Peter with pinpoint accuracy. However, the impact, which should have been thunderous, now displayed a force entirely disproportionate to that expected. Not only was the impact faint, but it was even less powerful than the previous clash between the two. With a mere sound, Thor's swift charge was successfully blocked. How is this possible? With Peter's single-handed grip on his neck, the lightning in Thor's eyes still lingered as he stared at Peter, who had so easily grasped him, his eyes filled with disbelief. No, I don't believe you're that powerful. Thor's resentment seemed to have driven him mad. He swung Mjolnir, hammering down fiercely on Peter's head. This time, not even a sound was heard. Peter once again blocked the blow with his whole strength. No, that's my Mjolnir, give it back to me. Peter even easily snatched Thor's hammer from his hand. With a swish, he casually threw Thor's body to the ground, and Peter looked at the hammer in his hand with interest. Boom. However, hearing another loud bang besides Thor's fall, Peter's attention was instantly drawn to the distant explosion, and the coldness in his eyes intensified. The hand holding Thor's hammer slowly began to exert force. P.S. Today is very important, everyone must read the latest chapter. Chapter 44 Thor's hammer shattered. That Thor, he showed up at a truly inopportune moment, feeling the energy that had been pulling him away from the sudden explosion in the distance slowly dissipate. Peter's cold gaze returned to Thor, who had been thrown to the ground. My hammer, Thor, having pounded a massive crater in the ground, endured the pain and slowly climbed out, gazing at the figure in the sky with a look of disbelief. Mjolnir, come back. The next moment, accompanied by ambient music, Thor raised his right hand, making a hollow grip, mentally summoning his Mjolnir. Buzz, sensing Thor's summons, the Mjolnir in Peter's hand trembled violently, emitting a humming sound. No, this is impossible. Thor was already astonished that Peter had been able to lift Mjolnir. Now, despite his summons, the hammer refused to escape, further incredulous. HMPH, feeling the hammer's growing resistance in his hand, Peter snorted coldly, then flew directly towards Thor on the ground. My Mjolnir, give it back to me, Thor shouted without hesitation, looking up at Peter. Give it back to you? If you admit defeat now, I might consider it, Peter spoke coldly, looking down at Thor from above, hoping he would make the right decision. No, absolutely not. We Asgardian warriors will never surrender to a weak human. However, how could the proud Thor give up so easily, especially to a human? Then, what a pity, having given Thor one chance, and him not cherishing it, Peter, already furious, no longer hesitated. He grasped Thor's hammer with one hand, slowly exerting a super strength so powerful that even he himself knew not the limit. Buzz, as if sensing a strong threat, Thor's hammer trembled continuously, emitting a powerful whine. No, what are you doing? As if sensing the hammer's whine, Thor looked at Peter in astonishment, summoning his own hammer even more vigorously in his mind. However, Mjolnir, aside from vibrating a little more intensely in Peter's hand, showed no sign of being summoned back. No, you can't do this. Without Mjolnir, I will lose my title as the God of Thunder. At that moment, Thor finally sensed what Peter was doing, and for the first time, panic and regret crossed his proud expression. Nick Fury, standing next to Mr. Superman, stepped forward, attempting to stop Peter. But the next moment, seeing Peter turn toward him with a stern look in his eyes, he stopped himself. The ambient music reached a new climax. Mjolnir in Peter's hand finally buckled under the weight, a crack slowly spreading from Peter's fingertips to the entire shaft. Oh no! Everyone, get down! Seeing a dazzling silver light emanate from the crack in the hammer, Nick Fury's face suddenly changed. No, Thor, unable to bear the thought of this happening before his eyes, leaped up with all his might, attempting to wrest Mjolnir from Peter's grasp. HMPH, watching Thor's movements, Peter no longer hesitated, suddenly increasing his strength. Boom! Instantly, Mjolnir, already riddled with cracks, exploded. The immense energy contained within was instantly unleashed, unleashing a terrifying energy shockwave. The powerful impact instantly sent Thor flying towards Peter, sending him flying. The shockwave spread in all directions. The sky, previously shrouded in thick, dark clouds, was instantly dispelled by the powerful energy shockwave. Sunlight returned to the earth, illuminating the pile of silvery metal fragments scattered across the ground. In Asgard, a vast, resplendent palace. Countless Asgardians gathered, awaiting the official start of the ceremony. Today was the day when Odin, the All-Father, would determine the heir to the throne of Asgard. Thor, Odin's son, was about to become the new heir to the throne of Asgard. From now on, Thor would rule and protect all of Asgard, leading it to a more prosperous future. However, as the ceremony approached, Thor remained nowhere to be seen, sparking widespread discussion among the awaiting Asgardians. Clang. Odin, clad in golden armor, slowly thrust Gungnir, the eternal spear, into the ground. A dull sound instantly echoed throughout the hall, and indeed throughout Asgard, completely silencing the surrounding discussions. Silence fell upon the hall. Queen Frigga, why hasn't Thor arrived yet? Odin's deep voice echoed slowly, his simple words imbued with immense authority. Perhaps he was so excited that he lost track of time. Frigga's expression darkened, but she forced a smile and offered an excuse for Thor's departure. Then, looking to his side, a figure wearing a helmet resembling two staghorns slowly said, "Loki, go call your brother, that guy, he's not really going to Midgard, is he?" Loki's face also darkened. He suddenly remembered Thor's words a dozen days ago, wanting to go to Midgard and challenge a human. Yes, mother, although he also didn't want Thor to inherit the throne so smoothly, he had no choice but to leave and find Thor. However, before he could leave the palace, Odin, who had been sitting calmly on the throne, suddenly stood up. "Who is it?" The veins in his hand gripping the eternal spear bulged. Odin, who had previously resembled an old man, now fully displayed the powerful aura of the Lord of the Nine Realms. He slowly raised his head, his single remaining eye seeming to penetrate the Nine Realms. What happened? Everyone in Asgard was stunned by the overwhelming aura Odin exuded. But the next moment, the aura disappeared. Vanished along with him was Odin, seated on the throne. "Loki, where did your brother go?" Gazing at the vanished Odin, Frigga realized something was amiss and anxiously asked Loki. He said he was going to Earth to challenge a new god. On Earth, as Mjolnir shattered, Thor instantly lost his soul, sitting dejectedly on the ground. In that moment, he had lost the most important thing in his life. Meanwhile, Peter, in the sky, did he glance at the dejected Thor on the ground. Instead, he slowly raised his head and gazed into the void, as if waiting for something. Suddenly, a brilliant beam of light descended from the sky. Like Thor's previous arrival on Earth, it struck the ground directly. The beam slowly dissipated, revealing a one-eyed old man clad in golden armor, wielding a golden spear. The old man first gazed down at the dejected Thor sitting on the ground. Then, his eyes shifted, slowly shifting to the scattered fragments of Mjolnir. Finally, he lifted his gaze and fixed his gaze on Peter, floating in the air. "You were the one who destroyed Mjolnir." Chapter 45, Escape in a Panic. "Yes, it's me." Facing Odin's all-seeing, arrogant gaze, Peter answered without a trace of fear or hesitation. Sure enough, when the younger one is struck, the older one follows. Unfortunately, for other novel protagonists, this situation might be a life or death test, but for me, the worst that can happen is I'll just have to deal with the older one as well. Gazing at Odin, whose imposing presence yet ultimately couldn't conceal his aging features, Peter showed no fear and even considered battling Odin. "But I'm helping him, lest he only remember being the hammer god and forget the true nature of his bloodline." Peter wasn't being quibbly. In the previous battle, although it seemed like he had one-sidedly crushed the opponent, Peter had also discovered the potential of this Thor, who seemed even greater than the Thor from the main movie universe. In moments of anger and rage, this Thor could already unconsciously unleash his divine power of thunder. However, perhaps because he relied too heavily on his hammer, he completely forgot that he was the true god of thunder, not just the hammer god who relied on Thor's hammer. Hammer god. Upon hearing Peter's words, Odin glanced back at Thor behind him, his eyes solemn, as if pondering something. He knew Thor possessed immense potential, perhaps even surpassing his own. And precisely because of this, he felt a sense of fear, fearing that in his twilight years, instead of raising a worthy ruler, he would instead raise another Hela. But, no matter what, Mjolnir belongs to Asgard, Temporarily putting aside other thoughts, Odin turned his gaze to Peter in the air. His single, piercing eye seemed to see through Peter completely. He had always been looked up to by others, but now he was being looked up to by others, which made Odin feel a little uncomfortable. The next moment, without any apparent movement, his body seemed to be lifted by an invisible force, slowly rising into the air, level with Peter. So? It's broken, and you're not asking me to compensate you, are you? Peter spoke to Odin, the Lord of the Nine Realms, with the ease of an ordinary old man. Gazing up at the two figures in the sky, Captain America, shield in hand, looked helpless on the ground. Looking at Nick Fury, whose face was stern beside him, he thought to himself, with the world changing so drastically, what good would waking me up do? Yeah, it's all broken. Looking at the shattered pieces of Thor's hammer on the ground, Odin fell into deep thought. As Thor's elder, he couldn't act rashly, lest he be accused of bullying. However, as the monarch of Asgard, he needed to restore Asgard's lost reputation. Don't hesitate. How about we just fight it outright? I'd like to see if, at your age, you still have the credentials to rule the Nine Realms. Facing Odin's hesitation, Peter suddenly spoke up, directly challenging him. Human, are you challenging me? Hearing Peter's provocative words, Odin finally lost his composure. The eternal spear in his hand suddenly vibrated through the air, its sharp golden tip pointed directly at Peter. The next moment, an invisible, terrifying aura instantly swept in all directions. Ordinary people on the ground, swept by this powerful aura, felt the urge to kneel down immediately. Peter, whose aura was directly countered by Odin's, also felt the sharp, powerful aura. Although his face remained expressionless, his eyes gradually grew serious. It is indeed Odin, the All-Father of the gods. Countless times more powerful than Thor. It's a pity he's just a little old, yet, he didn't flinch. His eyes fixed on Odin before him, a crimson light gathering within them. HMPH, seeing that Peter wasn't overwhelmed by his powerful aura, Odin was both surprised and infuriated. He snorted coldly. The sound, not loud, instantly echoed throughout New York City, and everyone was almost stunned by the sound. Above, Odin's overwhelming aura caused the clouds to swirl rapidly, like the eye of a massive storm inverted toward the earth, shrouding New York City in a scene reminiscent of apocalypse. But the next moment, a golden curtain of light suddenly shot up from the ground, instantly dispersing the apocalyptic scene shaped by Odin's mighty aura. Huh? You want to intervene? Odin's gaze flickered in one direction, as if he could peer through the void and see someone there. But the next moment, Odin's gaze darted back, gazing at Peter, whose eyes were shrouded in crimson energy so intense that it frightened him. With an extremely solemn expression, he hurriedly raised the eternal spear and pointed it at Peter. Hastily mobilizing the immense power of Odin within him, he unleashed it through the spear. Boom! Two terrifying and powerful energies, one red and one gold, collided instantly. The terrifying energy sent a violent tremor through the void, and a terrifying explosion, countless times more powerful than Peter's battle with Thor, erupted. Like a brilliant star suddenly exploding above New York, a terrifying storm of energy swept through the surroundings at a speed visible to the naked eye. Everything that came into contact with this powerful energy was instantly annihilated, not even the air itself. On the ground, countless people gazed at the intense energy erupting in the sky, tempted to flee, but ultimately felt only an endless sense of powerlessness. They could only watch helplessly as the seemingly all-consuming energy swept toward them. If possible, I would simply return to my previous state of slumber. Captain America raised his shield, then slowly lowered it. Crack! Suddenly, a sound like shattering glass echoed in everyone's ears. The next moment, as everyone stared in astonishment, the overwhelming energy that was sweeping outward, threatening to flatten the entire city of New York, along with the two figures engaged in the aerial battle, suddenly vanished. Crack! In the blink of an eye, the space before them shattered like a mirror. A slightly disheveled figure tumbled out from the shattered mirror and instantly rushed towards Thor on the ground, followed closely by two crimson beams of light. Father, you? Thor stared in disbelief as he watched Odin using the Spear of Eternity to block the crimson beams. Heimdall, Odin shouted into the void, grabbing Thor with one hand. The next moment, the Bifrost surged from the void, instantly enveloping Odin and Thor. Watching the Bifrost's beams rapidly dissipate, Peter, bursting out of the shattered void, his eyes blazing with crimson beams, unhesitatingly turned toward the dissipating Bifrost. Then, along with Peter's red beams, Odin and Thor vanished completely within the Bifrost. It took several seconds to finally stop his first full-throttle release of heat vision energy. Peter, still radiating a terrifying crimson glow, stared into the void and spoke slowly. HMPH, you're pretty fast. P.S. Thanks to book friend 202302319163247 for the 2000 Kidian coins he tipped. What a generous man. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation tickets. Friends who have the conditions can give paragraph rewards. Thank you everyone. Chapter 46 Artificial Solar Nano Battlesuit. Watching the figure disappear into thin air, Peter waited for a moment. She hasn't appeared yet. After waiting for a while, seeing no one appear before him, Peter couldn't help but feel a sense of confusion. Why is it that in novels, the protagonist who travels to the Marvel Universe is almost instantly targeted by her, but here, she seems to be avoiding me? Peter felt puzzled, but he didn't wait any longer. Instead, he gathered up the scattered fragments of Thor's hammer and, under everyone's admiring gaze, soared into the sky, leaving in a graceful manner. As Peter left, on the rooftop of a nearby building, a golden spark, like welding, slowly emerged in front of a figure in a yellow monk's robe. The spark grew in the wind, rapidly expanding into a yellow halo about 2 meters in diameter. The yellow-robed monk slowly stepped into the halo, and a strange black rune appeared faintly between his brows before disappearing. Finally, is it over? Watching Peter's departure signaled that everything that had happened today had come to a temporary end. But the hearts of those present could not calm down for a long time. First, a superhuman, a godlike being, appeared. Today, 2 more self-proclaimed gods have appeared. The god of thunder was alright, his power didn't seem particularly formidable, at least humanity's most advanced weapons could threaten him. But the old man who arrived later was terrifyingly powerful, his aura emanating a force that seemed capable of instantly crushing the wills of ordinary people. The drastic change in the world gave Nick Fury a momentary headache. Director, what should we do now? Coulson, feeling his own worldview shatter, could only place his hopes on his director. Send troops to clean up the battlefield and notify the Disaster Control Agency to begin post-disaster reconstruction. Nick Fury gave the order slowly, then gazed up at the sky, pondering for a long moment. Also, gather all energy experts within the agency and around the world to quickly initiate the second phase of the Rubik's Cube research project. The cosmic war has begun. Time is running out for us. Gazing into the void, Nick Fury's eyes gleamed like stars. As for him, then, Nick Fury turned his gaze to Captain America. Let me find a place to rest. I might not be able to adapt to such a drastic change this quickly. Having just woken up, barely had time to fully experience this new world, he was already experiencing such a huge shock. Even the strong-willed Captain America found it difficult to accept. Meanwhile, in Asgard, a beam of light streaked from distant Earth, and the Bifrost slowly stopped rotating. 2 figures suddenly appeared within the Bifrost's mechanism. Boom. However, 2 red energy beams followed, instantly piercing the Bifrost's spherical mechanism. Your Highness Thor, Heimdall observed, looking at Thor, who had been carelessly thrown to the ground by Odin. He didn't bother to care about the damaged Bifrost. He hurried over to Thor and helped him up. HMPH, who told you to go to Midgard without permission? Have you forgotten my order? Looking at Thor, Odin's expression darkened, and he suppressed his anger and angrily rebuked him. Everything that had happened today was caused by Thor's unauthorized journey to Midgard. Father, my Mjolnir is broken. Faced with Odin's rage, Thor muttered to himself, seemingly lost in thought. HMPH, that human was right. You've long forgotten your noble lineage, the divine blood that flows through your veins. Looking at Thor, distraught and still grieving the loss of Mjolnir, Odin's eyes revealed a fierce sense of disappointment. Mjolnir only makes it easier to control your own power, not to make you some hammer god. Thinking of the title of hammer god, even though he had indulged it, Odin couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. Father, is what he said true? Hearing his father's furious rebuke, Thor's vacant eyes finally brightened. Remembering the human's words, that he was the true god of thunder, a glimmer of hope suddenly ignited within Thor. HMPH, as a prince of Asgard, you must face your failure bravely and wash away the shame from now on. Instead of being so dejected and distraught as you are now, Odin watched Thor, finally regaining some of his confidence after the blow, and spoke with a gentler, yet still stern, tone. However, today's events have made me realize once again that you are not yet ready to rule all of Asgard. Seeing that Odin seemed to have made a decision, Heimdall, who was supporting Thor, tried to plead for him. No need to plead for him, this is his due punishment, Odin interrupted Heimdall, pointing the eternal spear at Thor, and a burst of golden divine power erupted. The next moment, Thor was struck back by the divine force, disappearing instantly. Next, let him reflect on his mistakes beneath the world tree, temporarily banishing Thor from Asgard. Odin seemed to have aged even more. Heimdall watched Odin slowly walk toward his palace, noticing that his aged figure seemed less upright than before. By the way, once he's mastered his divine power, take him to Nidave and have the Dwarf King forge him a new weapon, Odin instructed Heimdall before departing, not turning back. Peter, leaving the battlefield, returned to Earth, first visiting the place that had previously intrigued him. Sure enough, it's the artificial sun. Looking at the laboratory, completely destroyed by the explosion of the failed artificial sun experiment, reduced to ruins, Peter's suspicions were fully confirmed. While the word artificial sun carried the word artificial, the energy radiation it emitted seemed to be able to enhance Peter's power just as effectively as a real sun. However, its efficiency was naturally inferior. But if I could carry such an artificial sun with me at all times, wouldn't I be able to constantly enhance my power? A wild idea suddenly occurred to Peter. He couldn't always carry a real sun with him, but an artificial one seemed feasible. A new combination of artificial sun and nano-battlesuit. It seems that some special preparations are needed. As he thought, Peter's figure instantly disappeared in the air and flew rapidly towards the Antarctic laboratory. Open the door above the fortress. Great, the time it takes for the nano-battlesuit to completely cover the body has been shortened to 5 seconds. We finally succeeded. Peter walked slowly towards the laboratory and heard an extremely excited voice coming from the laboratory. Mr. Superman, the nano-battlesuit you need has already. Looking at Peter, who happened to walk into the laboratory, Reed said to Peter excitedly. Sorry, you may have to work overtime and revise the plan for the nano-battlesuit. At this moment, Peter instantly turned into an unscrupulous capitalist. However, by then you should have 2 more colleagues. Chapter 47, Mature Nano-Suit. Peter's actions, like those of an unscrupulous capitalist, drew a flicker of discontent from some, but ultimately no one dared to object. They'd already been locked up here for over a month, so a few more days wouldn't matter much. So, since no one objects, I'll take it as your consent. Seeing no objections, Peter simply acquiesced. Then, remembering their cheers, he couldn't help but ask, I thought I heard you say the nanosuit was a success. Yes, Mr. Superman, it was already done, but aren't you going to modify it now? Reed, his excitement at the success of the experiment gone, replied with a hint of resignation. They could only blame their bad luck for encountering a party A like Superman. That's okay. The general direction of the nanosuit won't change. It just needs a change in its energy source. It won't delay you much, Peter slowly explained. Change the energy source. The others couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. The nanosuit now used the arc reactor, built by Tony Stark, a groundbreaking achievement in energy technology. Now Peter wanted to switch to a different energy source. Why change the energy source? Is the arc reactor I created inadequate? Tony, who hadn't even objected when Peter asked everyone to work overtime, could no longer sit still. He stood up from the sofa next to him and asked Peter with a stern expression. You can question Tony about anything, but not his technology. Or have you found a better energy source than the arc reactor? Tony wasn't blindly questioning Peter's decision, he simply didn't understand what energy source could be more convenient than his own arc reactor. I can't say it's better than the arc reactor, I just say it suits me better. Tony's arc reactor used cold fusion, was smaller and more portable, while Dr. Otto's artificial sun was larger, better suited to powering larger facilities. Besides, using that new energy technology requires specialized technology. Tony ultimately accepted Peter's latest proposal. Sometimes it's just like that, when you want something, she'll find ways to keep it from you. When you don't want it, she'll think you're looking down on her and insist on giving it to you, which is a real headache. So, let me see your latest achievements now. Although the nanosuit's power source still needed to be redesigned, the technology behind it, powered by the arc reactor, was nearing perfection. Peter wanted to verify whether the final result, achieved after over a month of hard work, met his expectations. It was also time to replace his old suit. After all, the one he was wearing was so impressive that even Thor's was better. Okay, then, let me show you. Speaking of the nanosuit, Everyone present was incredibly proud to be part of such a remarkable technological development team. At this moment, especially those scientists who weren't famous in this world, they finally realized that the gap between true geniuses and these human elites was far greater than that between ordinary people and dogs. The arc reactor, nanotechnology, brainwave manipulation, intelligent control system algorithms, and incredibly powerful shock absorption technology. Each of these technologies represented incredible, unparalleled advancements that they might never achieve in their lifetimes. Yet, in a short period of time, this had been successfully created from scratch by some of humanity's most brilliant scientists. And, most importantly, they had combined all of this incredible technology to create the most powerful suit in human history. Forget about winning a Nobel Prize, a scientist's highest honor. If they could possess this suit, they could even change the fate of an entire nation. The next moment, Tony picked up a palm-sized, circular, luminous device from the table and, without hesitation, pressed it against his chest. I'm honored to have you witness the greatest invention of this century's most brilliant scientist, Tony Stark. Well, they mastered some of the technology, but I promise I can do it myself, given enough time. Facing the seemingly murderous gazes of the crowd, Tony finally retracted his boastful claim that everything was his own. Stop talking nonsense, Peter urged him in a deep voice. Okay, I'll get started. Seeing Peter's hostile look, Tony finally stopped hesitating and tapped the device on his chest twice with his right hand. The next moment, the nanometal particles stored within the device activated instantly. Powered by the powerful energy from the arc's reactor, they spread across Tony's body at an incredibly fast rate. In less than 5 seconds, a jet black, metallic shimmering armor completely enveloped Tony's body, leaving only his head exposed. The nanosuit is composed of 5 layers of nanoparticle structures. The innermost layers of biological nanostructures ensure comfort and mitigate the impact and damage caused by the immense inertia during sudden acceleration and stopping. The outermost layer is a new nanometal layer constructed from the strongest nanoparticles. It's tougher than titanium alloy and can withstand missile strikes head-on without sustaining any damage. As the suit rapidly covered his body, Tony proudly explained its various properties. And, most importantly, you can truly control it at will. The next moment, Tony's suit began to rapidly transform. Nanoparticles flowed continuously, forming a variety of new structures at a breakneck speed. Daggers, knives, swords, shields, hammers, axes, energy cannons, and so on. Basically anything you can imagine, it can quickly form according to your thoughts. As Tony explained, he even used nanoparticles in his hands to form a knife and fork for Western food. If you're feeling lonely at night, it can even become, that's enough, I don't need any of these functions. Peter, observing Tony's increasingly uncontrollable tendency, interrupted him as he continued to demonstrate these useless and somewhat fancy functions. As long as the nanosuit could quickly form and cover his entire body, that was enough for him. His steel body could completely ignore everything. Okay, you're the boss, you have the final say, but there's one function you absolutely need. Suddenly, Tony stopped demonstrating the nanoparticle's arbitrary properties, a mysterious smile on his face. The next moment, 2 flames suddenly erupted from beneath his feet, causing him to slowly float up. The nanoparticles behind him surged again, slowly forming a bright red cape behind him, even floating on their own in the windless laboratory. At the same time, Peter saw that the nanoparticles on Tony's chest were also slowly flowing, gradually forming a golden S pattern. I heard from them that in your family, this symbol represents hope. Chapter 48 Tony returns. I'm sorry, Mr. Superman. Mr. Stark added these features on his own initiative. Reed, looking at Tony's swagger, approached Peter and explained with a sullen face. Huh? I almost forgot. Mr. Richards also incorporated some special technology into the suit, Tony said slowly, his eyes shifting as he saw Reed had exposed him. He then soared through the air to the metal wall of the laboratory and slowly raised his hand toward it. The next moment, a beam of azure light suddenly shot out, instantly striking the metal wall. The azure light then slowly spread across the metal wall, forming a rectangular blue curtain about 2 meters high and less than 1 meter wide. What is this? Peter stared at the blue curtain, his eyes filled with curiosity. Hey, look at this, Tony chuckled and then passed directly into the blue curtain, which rippled faintly like the surface of water. The next moment, Tony appeared out of thin air outside the laboratory, waving at Peter and the others. What is this? Peter turned to Red with a look of surprise. Mr. Superman, I promise, I didn't develop this technology to escape from here, Reed, sweat pouring down his forehead, hurriedly explained to Peter. It's okay, I just want to know what this technology is. Peter looked at Reed with a hint of admiration. He was indeed the smartest person in the Marvel Universe. Well, this is actually an idea I had before I came here, but it didn't work due to limited experimental facilities and energy. Now we have plenty of experimental equipment here, and powerful energy technology like the arc reactor, so I gave it a simple try, and unexpectedly it worked, but I really don't want to escape from here. After all, you're Superman, where can I escape to? Seeing that Peter didn't seem to blame him, Reed slowly explained. So, your technology allows people to pass through walls. This technology was almost magical, astonishing. Actually, this is just a preliminary version of my idea, Reed said slowly, surprising everyone present even more. If the basic version could allow people to pass through walls, how incredible would the ultimate concept be? My original idea was to open a passage to some special dimension. If two interconnected devices were activated simultaneously, we could disregard space and distance and travel wherever we desired. Reed slowly unpacked his once crazy idea. Isn't this just a technological portal? Peter looked at Reed with a hint of surprise. This guy was trying to use technology to create magic. At that moment, Peter harbored the thought of imprisoning Reed here forever and keeping him under strict surveillance. He finally understood the meaning of the saying, when Earth is safe, Reed is the greatest danger. Of course, if there was a more troublesome organization, it would surely be composed of Reed, Tony, and others. Speaking of Reed, he was one of the most brilliant minds on Earth, possessing immense creativity. However, the technology he created, until it was successfully implemented, carried significant unknown dangers. Take, for example, the idea of using technology to create a magical portal. If he unfortunately opened a portal to an unknown dimension during his experiment, wouldn't the entire Earth be in grave danger? After all, the Marvel Universe is home to a variety of unique and terrifying dimensions. Famous ones include the Dark Dimension, the Crimson Dimension, and the Hell Dimension. If you ever want to experiment with those unusual ideas in the future, you'd better let me know. With this thought, Peter could only warn Reed. However, I'm quite satisfied with the nanosuit you've completed, it's just that the surface is too smooth and the metallic feel is too strong. I think it could highlight my muscular contours more. The black surface is indeed very cool, giving it a mysterious and majestic look, but it's too monotonous. I think it could use some elegant silver and gold lines or patterns. Anyway, I need that colorful black, don't you understand? Peter was quite satisfied with the nanosuit, but the exterior looked like it needed some refinement. No problem, it just makes me look more low-key, right? I know that. I've always been very low-key. Just as the others were wondering what the colorful black was, Tony, who had just returned from outside the lab, instantly agreed to Peter's proposal. A few hours later, a figure flew across the night sky. Inside Tony Stark's luxurious villa, a figure suddenly appeared on the sofa. Mr. Police, welcome home. Seeing the familiar figure suddenly appear in the villa and frantically search for a trash can, Jarvis's warnings immediately stopped. Then, the lights throughout the villa gradually brightened, welcoming its owner back. Ahem, Jarvis, long time no see. After rinsing his mouth with a precious red wine from the freezer, Tony slumped onto the sofa and lazily greeted Jarvis. Sir, do you want me to notify the others? Jarvis' voice continued, seeking Tony's opinion. Forget it, it's too late today. Let them get some rest. I'll notify them tomorrow morning. Tony thought for a moment and declined. Understood, sir. With Jarvis's confirmation, the villa fell silent once again. What an unforgettable experience. Staring at the familiar ceiling, Tony's mind replayed the unique circumstances of his kidnapping. Superman's nanosuit, Tony muttered, abruptly sitting up from the sofa. Jarvis, sir, at your service. Create a new research project, named, let's call it Nanosuit MK1. Instantly overcoming the strange urge to name something, Tony slowly formulated a more reasonable name. By the way, help me purchase and search for some experimental facilities and specialized materials around the world. Understood, sir. The new project has been successfully created. The materials and experimental facilities have been ordered and are being expedited, sir. Do you have any further instructions? Following Jarvis's words, Tony slowly fell into deep thought. After a long moment, Tony spoke again. Jarvis, help me pull up all the recent information on Superman. Finally, Help me find all the comics about Superman, sir. Didn't you say before that he was only 3 years old? Ahem. Jarvis, I think you should learn how to speak with high emotional intelligence so as not to embarrass your boss. Tony, unable to escape the law of true fragrance, said that as long as he didn't feel embarrassed, others would be embarrassed. Yes, sir, I'm working on it. Nanotechnology, you really have provided me with a good direction for my future. Thinking of the nanosuit he had experienced in the lab today, Tony's face couldn't help but be intoxicated. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Is there any use for magic plus armor? A hero for all mankind? A god? And an alien being who calls himself the God of Thunder? As Tony continued to learn about the tremendous changes in the world during the month-long period since his abduction, even though he had been prepared, he couldn't help but feel a surge of shock. Haha, how ridiculous. That despicable guy is actually being portrayed as a hero. What's wrong with those politicians? What staggered Tony the most was that the man who had kidnapped him was being touted by the government and media as a hero who saved humanity. Sir, according to online searches, Superman has topped the popularity charts in every country since his debut, surpassing countless Hollywood stars. The overwhelming majority of people agree that Superman's existence has made their lives better. Some even think that as long as Superman doesn't destroy the Earth, he's fully qualified to be called a hero. And they even cite the classic comic book event Injustice to Superman as an example. That's enough. I don't want to hear any more of this guy's heroics. Tony's face was serious, interrupting the information Jarvis had gathered. I just want to know what weaknesses this guy has in the comics. Although Superman had only kidnapped him and forced him to do hard labor, not actually harming him, Tony now had to prepare to face Superman again. Nano armor was his future research direction. But relying solely on ordinary nano armor was naturally inadequate to defeat the powerful Superman. Therefore, studying Superman's weaknesses was essential. Sir, Superman's weaknesses are mentioned in the comics, including but not limited to kryptonite, the red sun, mind control, magic, and his inner kindness. Kryptonite? That's impossible to find on Earth, and it's not certain whether it even exists. The red sun? It can be simulated, but I'm not sure if it would work. Mind control? Never mind, that's ruled out. As for inner kindness, does that guy have it? Tony was skeptical. Well, there's magic, but does it really exist in this world? Before being kidnapped, Tony would have scoffed at the existence of magic, but now, his heart yearned for its real existence. Jarvis, use magic as the keyword and conduct a detailed search worldwide. Magic plus technological armor seems promising. I'd like to give it a try. If magic really exists, can the combination of magic and nano armor really compete with that guy? Sir, I need to remind you that Mr. Superman has powerful hearing. Everything you're doing now might. Fuck, Jarvis, why didn't you warn me earlier? Tony hurriedly glanced out the window, and finally breathed a sigh of relief when no familiar figure flew over. Haha, this guy really is trying to put up an unnecessary resistance, but let him do whatever he wants. In the end, I'll be the one who benefits. Magic armor? Sorcerer Supreme Iron Man? I'm actually looking forward to seeing you in armor, a magic whip in your right hand, a magic shield in your left. Besides, I'm even more excited to dismantle this thing. Will it be so fun? Peter stopped monitoring Tony's villa and smiled with anticipation. It's easy to tell that Tony has always been a restless guy. Now that he's been kidnapped, it would be out of character for him not to stir up trouble when he returns. After all, it was precisely for this reason that Tony became Iron Man. However, Tony's destiny in this universe has changed, and it's likely to go beyond becoming Iron Man. Next, we need to continue perfecting the suit. The key lies with the original Ant-Man, Dr. Pym, and his Pym particles. Peter slowly pondered his next plan. Dr. Pym and his Pym particles were crucial. It's undeniable that sometimes the cutting-edge technology in the Marvel Universe transcends human comprehension. The Pym particles, developed by Dr. Pym, are among the most incredible, even more incredible than nanotechnology. They can shrink the distance between molecules, shrinking once massive objects to insignificant dimensions. They can even allow people to travel into the quantum realm. It's almost beyond the realm of technology. It's even more mystical than magic. But there's no rush for the Pym particles. They can't escape anyway. Peter had sent Tony back to the villa early because of Dr. Pym's impending arrival. After all, Dr. Pym and the Stark family still had some misunderstandings, and working together could easily lead to a fight. Furthermore, Tony's contributions to the nanoscience technology were almost complete. His presence was largely unnecessary for future research. Of course, if he was truly needed, he could simply be brought back. But before we deal with Dr. Pym, it seems we need to deal with Dr. Otto first. Peter's mind slowly shifted to the image of Dr. Octopus, a figure with 4 metallic tentacles. Meanwhile, at Dr. Otto's home, freshly released from police bail, he returned dejectedly. "Dear Otto, are you okay?" His wife, eagerly awaiting him at home, ran to him the moment she saw him, her voice concerned. "Rose, I'm fine. They've labeled the explosion an experimental accident. Fortunately, there were no casualties." Dr. Otto's face was filled with fatigue. "Unfortunately, my experiment failed, and my lifelong dream has been completely shattered." Even amidst his exhaustion, the sadness and pain of the failed experiment could hardly be concealed. They had given almost everything they had for this experiment, aiming to bring boundless energy to humanity, his lifelong dream. Yet, at this moment, with the experiment's failure, his dream was shattered. "It's okay, Otto. Cheer up. At least we're still alive, and we still have a chance to complete the experiment and fulfill our dream," his wife comforted him, ignoring the strange mechanical tentacles behind him and slowly hugging him. "Yes, we're still alive. We still have a chance. My experimental procedures were flawless. I calculated the radiation, the energy, and even the possible gravitational effects. The reason the experiment failed was because the experimental equipment wasn't robust enough to withstand such a massive amount of energy. If we can find stronger materials, I'll be able to conduct even larger-scale nuclear fusion experiments." His wife's comfort lifted Otto's spirits. "In the near future, we will forge a brilliant star with our own hands, in front of everyone's eyes." Otto spoke slowly, gazing at the dazzling night sky and the bright moon hanging in the horizon. The tentacles behind him danced, as if in celebration. "The sun's rays will surely bloom in this city. Eternal light will completely illuminate this starry sky." Chapter 50. Give Dr. Otto a little shock. "Haha, Dr. Otto, you have such great ambitions." Suddenly, a figure streaked across the night sky, appearing in the air before the two men, looking down at them from above. "Are you Mr. Superman?" Looking up at the sudden appearance of the stranger, Dr. Otto was initially nervous, instantly shielding himself and his wife with the metal tentacles behind him. However, when he saw that it was the renowned Superman, the tension on Dr. Otto's face vanished. "I'm sorry, Dr. Otto, I was delayed today by something, so I couldn't make it," Peter said with a hint of apology. "I understand. I saw the news. You were fighting alien creatures, protecting the city." Dr. Otto had mixed feelings about Superman. During his experiment, he somewhat blamed Superman's sudden appearance for stealing his spotlight. It had drawn away all the media and reporters in the lab, indirectly causing his experiment to fail so quickly, though failure was inevitable. However, when he later learned that Superman was defending the entire city, battling alien creatures claiming to be gods, his resentment vanished, and instead he was filled with admiration. He felt that Superman was humanity's true hero. "But, are you here to see me now? Is there something I can do for you?" Dr. Otto was clever enough to know that a being like Superman wouldn't take notice of an ordinary human for no reason. And right now, he must have another purpose in seeking him out. "For example, maybe I can help you with an experiment." Without hesitation, Dr. Otto guessed Peter's true purpose. "You're right. I'm also very interested in the artificial sun experiment you're conducting today. It's a near-eternal energy source. I believe it holds the key to humanity's future." Whether it could unlock humanity's future, Peter didn't know, nor did he want to know. He only knew that the artificial sun could unlock the powerful genes within him, making him ever more powerful. Therefore, no matter what, he had to possess the artificial sun. "Thank you very much for your attention and recognition, Mr. Superman. However, you're also aware that my experiment today failed." Dr. Otto's face showed a complex expression, as if he was mourning the failure. "Although today's experiment failed, weren't you just full of confidence, ready to proceed with the next one?" Peter noticed Otto's expression, as if he was about to refuse his help. "Besides, given your current situation, I'm afraid it's difficult for you to continue pursuing your dream of experimenting." By now, news of Dr. Otto's failed experiment had practically spread throughout the academic and investment circles. Capitalists are so realistic. When they see you're useless, they'll kick you out. Therefore, it will be extremely difficult for him to regain investment funds and resources. Are you going to rob a bank behind your wife's back to support your experiment? Hearing Peter's last words, Dr. Otto's previously serious expression instantly shattered. In fact, he had even considered using his powerful tentacles to rob a bank. After all, only he knew his current situation. If his experiment failed, he would face huge compensation to his investors. He feared that even the memories he and his wife held behind him, the home they cherished most dearly, would vanish. All right, Mr. Superman, it seems I have no reason to refuse. Finally, Dr. Otto, looking up at Peter from above, spoke slowly, letting go of his insistence. Don't worry. You won't regret this decision. Watching Otto bid his wife a final farewell with his eyes, Peter's floating figure slowly descended in front of them. He then grabbed Dr. Otto's body and instantly soared into the sky. Dr. Otto's wife was left staring into space for a long moment. Antarctica, beneath the ice cave. So, this is your fortress of solitude, floating in the air. Dr. Otto behaved much better than the others Peter had brought here. Not only did he not feel the urge to vomit, he even had the leisure to carefully observe his surroundings. Fortress of solitude? No, just a simple place to stay. Peter was no longer satisfied with a construction plan for the Fortress of Solitude. He had other plans in mind. Let's go. Let me introduce you to some friends, or colleagues. You might be working together for a while. They're all very smart, though. I'm sure you'll have a lot to talk about. Peter opened the large metal door above the laboratory and slowly led Dr. Otto inside. As soon as he landed, Otto saw a dozen people standing before him, men and women, young and old, seemingly waiting for his arrival. Hello, I'm Otto Octavius. Hello, I'm Reed Richards. Dr. Otto. It's a pleasure to meet you. I've read your research papers on nuclear physics a long time ago. The sight of the dancing mechanical tentacles behind Dr. Otto made everyone feel a little strange. However, Reed composed himself and greeted Dr. Otto first. The others then introduced themselves, and then a silence fell, with everyone's attention turning to Peter. After all, Peter was the one who had the final say. Okay, now that everyone's acquainted, let's discuss our next plan, Peter said, placing his hand on his chest. The next moment, the nanoparticles forming his nanosuit began to shrink rapidly. In a matter of seconds, before Dr. Otto's astonished gaze, they all converged into the glowing device on his chest. What is this? Nanotechnology. Dr. Otto, despite his major in nuclear physics, had a good understanding of the basics of nanotechnology. Incredible. Has nanotechnology really advanced to this point? This understanding only made Dr. Otto's astonishment even greater. Wait, this is, however, compared to the incredible nanotechnology, his expression instantly became mixed when he truly saw the glowing nano container. A miniaturized arc reactor? How is this possible? No, it's absolutely impossible. Has this been a dead end? At this moment, he was almost at a loss. It was as if the answer you'd been searching for your entire life was now right in front of you, only to discover that your research had been on the wrong track from the very beginning. The energy of the sun. Peter slowly placed the arc reactor in Dr. Otto's incredulous and uncertain gaze. Everything is in my hands. Dr. Otto stared at the arc reactor with blazing eyes, as if looking at a perfect work of art, and slowly continued Peter's words. Then, his gaze suddenly turned to Peter. So, you called me here just to strike me down. P.S. Thanks to Ming Ruol and Yi Liu for the 500 Kidian coins. Awesome. Also, please give me your votes and recommendation tickets for next month. Thank you. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.